27th, 2021, and this is the morning session of the Portland City Council meeting. Keelan, can you please call the roll?
Good morning, President Ryan and Commissioners. Hardesty.
Here.
Maps.
Here.
Rubio.
I see Commissioner Rubio put in the chat that her camera's not working, but she's here.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
And they're working on it, so we'll see her soon, hopefully.
Okay. Ryan.
Here.
Wheeler.
Here.
Okay, please note City Hall is closed to the public due to COVID-19 pandemic. Under Portland City Code, the state law, the City Council is holding this meeting electronically. All members of the council are attending remotely by video and teleconference, and the city has made several avenues available for the public to listen to the audio broadcast of this meeting. The meeting is available to the public on city's YouTube channel, eGovernment PDX, www.portlandoregon.gov/video, and channel 30. The public can also provide written testimony to the council by emailing the council clerk at cctestimony@portlandoregon.gov. The council is taking these steps as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the need to limit in-person contact and promote social distancing. The pandemic is an emergency that threatens the public health, safety, and welfare, which requires us to meet remotely by electronic communications. Thank you all for your patience, flexibility, and understanding as we manage through the difficult situation to do the city's business. Email the council clerk at councilclerk@portlandoregon.gov with any questions. You can find the link to the agenda online at www.portlandoregon.gov.council/agenda. Who is the attorney today? Is that you, Wendy?
It is.
Okay, good morning. Please read the statement.
To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. The published council agenda at portlandoregon.gov/auditor contains information about how and when you may sign up for testimony while the city council is holding electronic meetings. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of the testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When your time is up, the presiding officer will ask you to conclude. Disruptive conduct such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being placed on hold or ejected from the remainder of the electronic meeting. Please be aware that all council meetings are recorded.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. Before we go into communication, Mayor Wheeler, you're all signed. We can hear you. We can hear you. You're all plugged in, and it's good to see your face, Commissioner Rubio. And Mayor Wheeler wanted to have the floor for a moment. Take it away.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. And you can hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, good. So I have 3 announcements I'd like to make. The first is just administrative. Obviously, I want to thank you, Commissioner Ryan, for presiding in my absence. I am in the process of seeing my daughter off to summer camp, and so I felt it would not be appropriate for me to try and preside while doing that important family duty. So thank you for stepping in on my behalf. Because I'm on the phone, I may hop in and hop out throughout the day just because you know how cell coverage can be. But I'm going to do my level best to be here with my council colleagues throughout the day. There is a second thing I want to say on a personal note, which is, I just cannot let this moment pass. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I thought I heard somebody say hello. I want to say something about, of all things, the Olympics. This is a moment where the world comes together It is an opportunity for us as a society to find the commonalities that we all share. And the most remarkable thing in this Olympics has unquestionably been having mental health be front and center. And I think it is worth it for me to say that Simone Biles has become my hero. She has done more in withdrawing from her competition to remove the stigma of mental health than probably anybody has done in many, many years. And I want to acknowledge that, the connection she has made between the impact of mental health on physical health and well-being. I view what she has done as a courageous act to very publicly admit that it's okay to not be okay. And as a council where we spend so much time deliberating and working on and trying to address the issues of people living in our community with mental health, I think it's notable that somebody who seems to have everything going their way has been struggling so personally under the pressures of what she does and under mental duress that she is publicly admitted to. And I think that has opened a door for a conversation in our community and our society about the prevalence of mental health issues and the impact that it has on each and every one of us. And I feel compelled, Presiding Officer Ryan, to say that this morning, since it's top of news. It's certainly something that I have been thinking about, and I know that my colleagues share my commitment to helping those on our streets who struggle with mental health issues, but acknowledging that all of us struggle with mental health issues. My second announcement relates to COVID. And as you colleagues are keenly aware, in the last several days, a lot has been going on with regard to the spread of the Delta variant around COVID. The city issued guidance that was based on conversations that Chief Administration Officer Reinhardt had with all of us, with our labor leaders, with other stakeholders over the course of the last several weeks. But as is often the case with COVID, it's changing on a daily basis. The CDC has issued some new recommendations just in the last 48 hours subsequent to the city issuing its guidance. I want to signal to our employees where I stand on this as of this moment. My intention is, if I had the ability to act unilaterally, I would support vaccination for all city employees or regular testing to demonstrate that people are not coming into our workplace potentially spreading COVID at a time when we are seeing COVID cases again increase at an alarming rate. I want to be clear that this is a decision that would have to be made by the council. I have had conversations with legal counsel. It's not clear that I have the authority the same way officials in New York or in LA have the authority to unilaterally rule on this, but I want to give our employees a heads up that if I had my way and I had the legal authority to act unilaterally, I would put into effect very similar provisions to what is currently in effect in New York, which is you either vaccinate or you test. I think that is the strategy that we should strive for. But again, I will be working with the Chief Administrative Officer, with our legal counsel, with my colleagues on the City Council, and with our labor units, understanding that there are employees who are exempted by state law from any vaccination requirement. I would still like to see us have a testing requirement to ensure the safety and well-being of all of our employees. That is just a heads up. Chair Ryan, thank you for your forbearance. Thank you for giving me a few minutes of the floor as we open today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor, for both of those statements. I wanted to follow up on the issue around mental health. Recently, we learned that a employee of PBOT committed suicide, which has been the second suicide since COVID started. And I want to just remind us that with all the crises that all of us are dealing with on an almost daily basis, that all of us are suffering all those crises at the same time, that we show up every day to do our job at the city. And we need to make sure that we are taking care of our own mental health. We cannot be good public stewards if we, in fact, aren't taking care of ourselves as well. So I keep encouraging my bureaus to like check in on each other and make sure that if somebody's having a hard time, that we support them, because this has been a hard 16, 17 months for us all. And we're not even close to being on the other side yet. So I just wanted to appreciate and take a moment to just acknowledge that city employees, many are struggling, and it's our responsibility to make sure that they're aware of the supports that are actually built into their benefits packages. But then as people, we just remind each other that that we have to be kind to each other as we all struggle through coming out of this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Did anyone else want to make a comment before we go on to communication? Okay, thank you, Mayor, for your leadership and your candor about such an appropriate topic, and also for your focus on public health. Okay, first up is communications. Keelan, can you please call item 589 in the first individual?
Request of Wayne Wiggins to address council regarding homeless shelters, moped roads, and defunding universities.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear.
Thank you. Well, first off, with regard to the homeless issue, from the beginning, COVID has been used as the means to promote an agenda that has been at play for decades now, namely the proliferation of the idea that homelessness is a private housing issue more than it is a sociological one. And this is a manifestation of a cultural conflict that can be traced back to the 19th century, a time in which the cult of domestic life began to establish supremacy. But the strategy of insulating homeless from one another via four flimsy walls is short-sighted, and it's even contradictory. The fact is, outbreaks, they're a case of the battle being won or lost before it ever begins. We saw COVID happening months before it ever, we saw COVID coming months in advance. The thing is but it was the immobility of the domestic life which made people reluctant to make adjustments proactively when it would have actually made a difference. Anthropology is full of examples in which nomads would either circumvent a town or simply move on when an outbreak began. All of this is to say that there's more to mobility than simply having internet connection. And putting all of our faith in four flimsy walls is a dangerous strategy. Communal living projects should continue to be funded, both because they're more efficient and because they provide much needed alternatives to the domestic life. In the worst case, we pop a few tents and then we use the facility to access resources one at a time during an outbreak. The second thing I wanted to address is that we need to begin constructing roads for mopeds. It's the furthest thing from sustainable to continue enabling 5,000-pound gas-guzzling death machines that people are using, millions of people are using every day for non-essential tasks. Finally, with regard to the mobilization of work, which COVID has catalyzed, and the BLM movement, we need to completely restructure our educational system. At the university level, we've been getting sold out to gangsters. And I'm not just saying this to be facetious. Universities represent the last remaining European guild system. The Scholars Guild remained when all other guilds went out of business because at the time they did not stand in the way of commerce. But today they've managed to position themselves as a very gateway to the information economy. K through 12 is also operating on a very outmoded model. Industrialization in the 19th century required people be weaned to notions of living by the clock and receiving instructions from a superior, but there's no a priori reason why we need to hang on to this outmoded ideology today. The primary task of K through 12, however, was and it remains the acculturation of ethnic minorities in an effort to foster a sense of shared culture that mitigates factionalism and provides national stability. The problem, alone, this is no problem. The problem is that the way it's been implemented for the last 150 years is such that it's been basically everybody but consumers of education who have gotten to dictate what that shared culture is. And this is grossly out of line with today's political culture. I'm a little bit in a deficit of a time here. I got about 30 seconds left, or you just want me to cut it there?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wiggins. I appreciate your testimony. Let's go on to communication item 590.
Request of Kate Dixon to address council regarding environmental concerns in the South Park blocks.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Well, first of all, I just need to say very quickly how much I appreciate Mayor Wheeler's comments this morning about mental health and Commissioner Hardesty's comments as well. It is so important that all people are taken care of during this very challenging time. So first off, I'm Dr. Kate Dixon, and I'm a many-year Portland resident who loves our city as you do. I want to thank you first off for your service to this beloved city and the work you do every day to create a thriving, safe, and livable city for all Portlanders. My request to you today as our city leaders is to strongly encourage you to take a deeper dive into the intended and unintended consequences of the South Park Block Master Plan before making any additional decisions. With so much debate and misinformation surrounding the master plan, we need data and evidence-based answers to some questions before moving forward. Number one, what are the true park boundaries and who decides? Number two, are trees being removed or not removed? The master plan drawings, pages 50 and 51, say yes. So let's just clarify that. Number three, what is the heat island impact of the 50,000 plus square feet additional concrete down the middle of the park blocks? Number four, what is the impact on pedestrians, trees, and property by installing a bike loop for bicyclists, e-bikers, e-scooters, skateboarders, hoverboarders, Segway riders? What is that impact? And number five, what is the maintenance plan for the South Park block trees? To answer these essential questions, one of the most responsible steps I believe you can take as city leaders is to request that a neutral party conduct an environmental impact study and clarify the confusing and misinformation of the master plan. Over 90% of the residents testifying at the July 15th hearing voiced serious and informed concerns about the master plan. They can't all be wrong or misguided. I want to strongly urge you, therefore, number one, acknowledge your commitments in the Central City 2035 plan, clarify the points of misinformation, commission an environmental impact study, prioritize, number three, prioritize Morgan Holand's 2019 tree inventory, and definitely dedicate adequate funds in the park's budget for the recommended pruning and tree maintenance. Commissioner Rubio is right. She said it. We must be aggressive to disrupt climate change. It is time to maintain and take care of our large mature trees. The science is clear. Mature trees clean the air in our city. And number four, finally, let's find common ground and be true to the vision and goals of our city that we love. Futures park block decisions need to embrace the Indigenous people's 7-generation principle. The park blocks have been a people's park with a tree canopy for the past 7 generations. Let us find common ground to make the best decisions for a next 7 generations people's park. It is an ethical commitment to the sacredness of the land Portland is built upon. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Kate. Appreciate your testimony. So let's go ahead, and that concludes our report, our communication. Let's go to time certain. The first item, 591. Keelan, can you please read the item?
President Ryan, did you want to call the vote for the consent agenda first, or would you like to do the time?
No, I'd rather just focus on the time certain next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Mhm.
Accept the quarterly Technology Oversight Committee report from the Chief Administrative Officer.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Hello, President Ryan. Did you want me to take this item? Is this 591? It was introduced by the mayor and the Officer of Finance.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have the wrong
Commissioner
number.
Ryan, I've got some brief opening remarks.
Great.
Thank you, though. I'm pleased
Mayor
to
Wheeler.
introduce this report by. Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Can you? Okay, great. I'm pleased to introduce this report by the Technology Oversight Committee. This, as you know, is 5 members of the public who've been selected by a commissioner to provide oversight of the city's technology projects. The TOC is currently overseeing the development of the integrated tax system project, which will provide a self-service e-filing system for users. That's exciting. Though there are no major project developments at this particular time and no projects under review, the TOC expects more updates by its next quarterly report. Chief Technology Officer and the Director of the Director of the Bureau of Technology Services, Jeff Baer, and the citizen member of the TOC who represents Commissioner Mapp's office, Jimmy Goddard, are all here to present the report. Good morning, Jeff and Jimmy.
Good morning, Mayor Wheeler. Thank you for the introduction. And I'm going to turn it over to Ethan first to walk us through the presentation. Ethan, are you there?
Hello, Jeff. Good morning. Good morning, Mayor Wheeler. Good morning, commissioners. This is the second quarterly report for the Technology Oversight Committee. Today, we are going to be it's much of the same thing. It's going to be just a basic report. Really not too much has happened with the committee, but we have been seeing through the integrated tax system project, as well as we have just received a brand new project with police. Today, you're going to be hearing from CTO Jeff Baer, and then following him, you'll be hearing from Jimmy Goddard. At the moment, Jimmy, I think, is having issues and cannot actually join us, even though I believe he's gotten an invite. But regardless, I will hand it over at this point to Jeff, and he can take it from there. Jeff?
Thank you, Ethan, and thank you, and good morning, City Council. And unfortunately, Jimmy is not here today, but I met with him on Monday evening at our regular scheduled Technology Oversight Committee meeting, and we had another update on that, which I'll get to. But I just want to provide an update on the ITS project, that it does continue to be well managed by the revenue project team. And this week at the TOC, it was again rated all green. And as you may have noted in the report itself, one of the, I think the call outs was they called the project dull and boring. So I think that's a great way to approach these kind of projects when you can never get that characterizations. Another one, although not included in the quarterly report at this week's TOC meeting, our staff from our bureau provided a project overview of the Office 365 deployment for the Police Bureau. And the TOC approved this project for official oversight and will begin monitoring each month. So you'll see this in the next quarterly report as well. And let me just look one more time to see if Jimmy's on here. I don't see him. So with that, I will just pause and really thank you each for your opportunity to present. And this really concludes our report to our quarterly report, and here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. And looks like we have questions. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Jeff. For the benefit of my newer colleagues, I just want to say I am such a fan of the oversight, the Technology Oversight Committee. You have helped us through some major technology issues at the City of Portland, and the expertise of the Oversight Committee members. I'm just so grateful that you volunteer your time to help the city do better. I was pleased to hear you mention the Office 365 what is it, 365
Yep.
project with the Portland Police Bureau. But I'm concerned that I didn't hear you mention their data collection system because, as you may know, we have directed Portland Police Bureau to work with your committee to ensure that when we replace our data management system, that this time we actually do it well and that we have a system that will do what it is we want it to do. I know that we gave I believe, a 2-year extension to the current project on their data system. So I just wanted to put that on the public record that I have an expectation that they're going to work with you because they don't want to come back to council and not have done what they've been directed to do. So just kind of a public statement for the record. And again, thank you, Jeff. This has been, every project that you have worked on has made the city of Portland so much better and so much more efficient. You undersold this new system for the revenue division, however. Our ability to collect tax dollars for other jurisdictions and to ensure that there's an easy, seamless process is huge. And so you just kind of undersold it. I'm glad that it's going well, but it will have a huge impact on our ability to be able to track revenue, not just for the city of Portland, but for other governments who are buying into the system as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. And just on the police record system, that is in the queue, so that will become in front of the TOC.
I'm really happy to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Commissioner Mapps.
Just a quick question for staff. Number one, thank you for being here today. We appreciate it. I was just wondering if there are plans to reconvene the Technology Executive Steering Committee, and if so, when is that likely to happen?
Yes, thank you for that question, Commissioner Mapps. And I was just recently speaking to CAO Tom Reinhardt about that, and it looks like we'll be slated for the fall. We were kind of targeting once we reopen the building in October, if that's still on track, but that's our intent, is this fall.
Great, I'm delighted to hear that. Thank you so much.
And Commissioner Ryan, it looks like we have Jimmy Goddard here.
I was just going to mention that Jimmy's joined us. Jimmy, would you like to, Jimmy, would like to speak?
Yeah, no, thank you so much, everyone. Was having some issues with the link. Not sure if, I'm pretty sure Jeff has provided the fundamental reports that over the next, one of the projects that we're looking at right now is the ITS project that is between stages R3 and R4. So far, we don't have any incidents and it ranks green. And over the next few months, we expect the team to tackle the next 4 milestones that has to do with testing, training, implementation, go live, and stabilization. And our latest assessment, in the latest assessment of the TOC, we have strong confidence in the schedule and the budget and also the scope for the ITS project. So everything is green. I like to say it's green as Oregon, so which is a good thing. The other project we received updates this week has to do with the Police Office 365 project. Our expectation is for the project to take about a year based on the schedule the team presented to us. The project seeks to standardize the police software suite to be the same as what the rest of the city is using. Our preliminary assessment, we would love for this project to come back to the TOC, as we would like to provide some oversight over the schedule and also the budget. And also we want to make sure the council knows that the TOC has capacity for more projects. We are busy in our day-to-day lives, but we're never busy to help Portland do better.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you for your leadership. Appreciate you having a chance to get on the call. So colleagues, is there any more deliberation on this item? Does it seem to be? So this has been moved to, do we get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Keelan, can you please call the roll?
Hardesty,
Again, I just want to thank you so much, Jimmy, and the other volunteers who just dedicate so much time and energy to helping the city be better. You may be a little, we're going to take you up on your offer. We're not keeping you busy enough. So we're going to fix that. So you may be sorry you said that in public because I have it on record. I am very happy to vote aye.
Maps,
Aye.
Rubio,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Wheeler,
Aye.
Okay.
President Ryan, may I interrupt? I'm sorry.
No, I realize we can't go to time certain at 10:15, correct?
Yes, and I also wanted to, I'm sorry I missed it. Who moved that report?
I thought I heard the mayor move it when he brought it to us.
I move the report to accept the quarterly technology oversight committee report from the chief administrative officer. You may just not have heard me. Sorry.
I didn't. I apologize. Thank you.
No worries.
Okay.
Commissioner Ryan, we may want to go back to the consent.
Yeah, that was what I was trying to do. So anyway, since we're not at 10:15 for time certain, Keelan, can we go to the consent agenda, please?
Yes, we had a request from Commissioner Rubio's office to pull 601.
Okay, so we'll move that to the end of the morning agenda, and we will then take up the rest of the items on consent agenda 593 through 604, moving 601 to the end of the morning session, correct?
Yes, thank you. Hardesty,
Aye.
Maps,
Aye.
Rubio,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye.
One moment as I look for others to fill up time before we get to the time certain at 10:15. I am digging through my notes in real time. Why don't we go to 605? Let's read that, please.
Appoint Ron Bronson to the Portland Historic Landmarks Commission for a term to expire July 27, 2025.
Thank you, Keelan. This is from Development Services, and I'm excited to present the Portland Historic Landmarks Commission's candidate, Ron Bronson, to you today and ask for your support in confirming Ron's appointment. Ron is to be nominated for a 4-year term, which would expire July 27th, 2025. Ron brings a unique perspective as someone who has worked in government and understands the various layers of decision-making. He is a skilled communicator and is committed to ensuring that the Commission's decisions and advocacy work include and add context for the mistakes of the past to ensure they are not repeated. Hillary Adam from the Bureau of Development Services will speak a little more on Ron. Hillary, are you here and can you take it away? So I probably should have found out if Hillary was here before we went to that item. Is there anyone from BDS here who can speak to this? I could still move for the vote, correct? Yeah. Okay, colleagues, any deliberation before we go to the roll call? Okay, Keelan, please call the roll.
President Ryan, I believe this is a report, and we may need to ask for someone to move the report.
I move the report as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Maps. Okay, Keelan.
Great, thank you. Hardesty.
You're welcome.
I want to say Ron Bronson is going to be an incredible addition to the Landmarks Commission. I am really excited that he wants to volunteer his time in this capacity. This is a wonderful appointment. I'm really impressed with the background of Mr. Bronson and know he will bring a lot of those great skills. Yay vet. He's a vet as well, like that. And so I am very happy to support this nomination. I vote aye.
Maps,
Yes, I want to thank Mr. Bronson for his service to our city. I look forward to the work that the Landmarks Commission will do over the next year. I vote aye.
Rubio,
I want to thank Ron for his willingness to serve on this historic landmark commission. I too am very excited for this appointment and for the expertise that Ron brings. And if you've been tracking our agendas over the last few weeks, you'll see the decisions made by the commission are critical to our council deliberations quite a bit more than people would think. So look forward to his work on this commission. I vote aye.
Ryan,
Yes, I'm sorry that Ron could not be here today. He had a conflict, but I hope that he tunes in to witness all the support for his service. We really appreciate it. I vote aye.
Wheeler,
Aye.
Okay, Keelan, let's go to item 606, and after that, we should be able to go back to time certain.
accept proposal of James W. Fowler Co. for the Mount Tabor Yard Maintenance Facility and Multimodal Pathway Project for $13,670,750.
This is a report, and it looks like it's Mayor Wheeler. Should we just turn it directly to Kathleen Bruns?
Good morning, Mayor.
I'm sorry, Dan. Which one is this? Which item?
We're at 606.
Yeah, hang on, I've got something here. This is a procurement report for the Portland Parks and Recreation to execute a contract to make improvements at and around the Mount Tabor Yard Maintenance Facility. These improvements include constructing a new maintenance shop facility, paving a new multimodal pathway featuring public art that will connect Southeast Division Street as well as Southeast 64th Avenue, relocating current horticultural areas and establishing a new horticultural area for plant storage. These changes will provide a safer work facility for many PP&R employees, as well as greater accessibility into and enjoyment within Mount Tabor Park. Interim Chief Procurement Officer Kathleen Brunas-Marua is here to present this report. Thanks, Kathleen, and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. For the record, I'm Kathleen Brunas-Marua, Interim Chief Procurement Officer. With me is Robin Laughlin, the Capital Renovation Program Manager with Portland Parks and Recreation. We are here to recommend authorization to enter into a contract with James W. Fowler Company for the Mount Tabor Yard Maintenance Facility and Multimodal Pathway Project. Council approved an exemption from the low bid procurement method on September 16th, 2020, authorizing procurement services to conduct a request for proposals solicitation process to award this construction contract. The estimated budget for the project at that time was $8,100,000. We issued a request for proposals on January 12th of 2021, and on February 17th, we received one proposal. The proposals were evaluated by a 5-member evaluation committee that consisted of representatives from Portland Parks and Recreation, the project's design consultant, and a community member from the Minority Evaluator Program. James W. Fowler Company's proposal was responsive and received high scores, and Portland Parks accepted the evaluation committee's recommendation to award the contract to James W. Fowler at a negotiated contract amount not to exceed $13,670,750. The city's aspirational 20% subcontractor and supplier utilization goal applied. James W. Fowler has committed to subcontract 47.1% to contractors certified by the state's certification office for business inclusion and diversity, as identified in the report before you. They're self-performing 47.7% of the work and subcontracting the remaining 4.1% to non-certified firms. James W. Fowler Company is in full compliance with all city contracting requirements, and I here recommend you authorize this contract. Happy to take any questions about the procurement process. Robin is also here and can address any questions specifically about the project.
Thank Thank you, Kathleen. Any questions before we move the report forward? Seeing none, would anyone like to move a motion to move the report forward?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Rubio. Keelan, please call the roll.
Hardesty,
I just want to compliment procurement for this excellent contract. As you know, I'm very critical of procurement projects that don't benefit a broad segment of our community. This is one of those contracts that I hope procurement is really proud that they are presenting here to the city council. What I know is that when we are intentional, we do a much better job of ensuring opportunity for a whole host of community members. And I am critical when it doesn't go well, but I'm also jumping up and down with joy when it goes really well. This is a good contract. This provides good opportunity for a host of community members, and my hat's off to procurement for this particular contract. I am happy to vote aye.
Maps,
I'd also like to congratulate procurement on doing an excellent job of meeting our contracting goals here. I also know that this particular project is important and long overdue. I'm glad to see it move forward. I vote aye.
Rubio,
I'm really pleased that Parks has continued in their commitment to make intentional the ongoing efforts to support minority and women-owned companies as a part of their practice. And I also want to sincerely thank Kathleen and procurement for all their work on this project and their partnership. I also want to thank Robin and the entire Parks Replacement Bond team for delivering on much needed urgent repairs and replacements throughout the whole park system. And I know we have a lot of need in our system, but what we've accomplished since the bond passed in 2014 is to be celebrated. So I really commend Robin and the team for that. I'm also really glad that we're moving one step closer to completion of this important facility at Mount Tabor Yard. And I know Parks employees based there have been eagerly anticipating this completion. So I thank them for their patience, and I'm happy to vote aye.
Ryan,
Yes, thank you. I echo many of the comments already mentioned. Thank you for your leadership, Kathleen. I vote aye.
Wheeler,
Yeah, thanks, Kathleen and procurement. Great work on this, and to all the folks in the Parks Bureau. Thank you, Commissioner Rubio. This is a great project, and I look forward to seeing how this will unfold in the months ahead. Congratulations. I vote aye.
Okay, we have a couple more minutes. Why don't we go ahead and try item 607?
accept bid of McClure and Sons, Inc. for the Columbia Boulevard Wastewater Treatment Plant Organic Waste Receiving Facility Project for $7,067,866.
And this is a second reading, correct?
This is a report.
Okay. So I move, who's taking this? Mayor Wheeler?
I'll take this one, President Ryan, thanks. This is a procurement report for a Bureau of Environmental Services project to execute a contract to build an organic waste receiving facility at the Columbia Boulevard Wastewater Treatment Plant. The disposal of fats, oils, and grease in the metropolitan region contributes to sewer overflow and traffic congestion from servicing needs. This facility will be designed to process that waste using our current plant's digestion system, increasing the biogas we create and producing more renewable energy in turn. Interim Chief Procurement Officer Kathleen Brenes-Marua is making a comeback in this second presentation this morning. Good morning, Kathleen.
Good morning. Thank you. Again, for the record, I'm Kathleen Brenes-Marua, Interim Chief Procurement Officer. Bhargavi M. Budkar, the engineer with Environmental Services Wastewater Treatment and Pumping Systems Division, joins me today. to recommend authorization to enter into a contract with McLaurin Sons Incorporated for the Columbia Boulevard Wastewater Treatment Plant's Organic Waste Receiving Facility Project. On July 15, 2020, Council authorized procurement services to solicit the project with an engineer's estimate of $7,821,000. Environmental Services rated the project estimate confidence level as moderate at that time. Procurement Services issued an invitation to bid, and bids were opened on April 27, 2021, and 4 bids were received. McLaurin Sons Incorporated submitted the lowest responsive bid in the amount of $7,067,866. The city's aspirational 20% subcontractor and supplier utilization goal applied. McLaurin Sons has committed to subcontract 20.36% to firms certified by the state's Certification Office for Business Inclusion and Diversity, as identified in the report before you. They're self-performing 65.4% of the work and subcontracting the remaining 14.24% to non-certified firms. McLaurin Sons is in full compliance with all city contracting requirements, and I hereby recommend that Council accept this report and authorize execution of the contract. Again, happy to answer questions about the procurement process, and Bargabee is here if you have questions about the scope of the project.
Thank you, Kathleen, for that report. Commissioner Hardesty has her hand up.
Thank you, Kathleen. I guess if you'd have brought this to me, not sandwiched in between 2 incredible examples of creating opportunity, it would have been okay. I see this as an okay contract, but it's not moving the bar in my mind. When I look at the utilization, it continues to favor populations that aren't representative of the people who could do the work. And so I gave you great praise a moment ago. I'm going to give you great praise on the next one. But this one does not impress me as being as intentional as I know we can be. So just wanted to put that on the record. I know we're going to get better. We're getting better. But I didn't want the mayor to think that I was going to let this one slip through. I think he said something about, oh, this is it's going to be a great day. And it is a great day for procurement. But I know that this is a adequate contract, but it's not a good contract. It's not one that I'm proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Any other comments? Mayor, would you like to make a motion to bring this forward?
I move that we accept the procurement report.
Second.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioner Mapps. Keelan, please call the roll.
Hardesty,
again, I am looking forward to the day when we come to council with procurement contracts, that all the questions are answered before it gets to city council, and that we've made the opportunities available for all. I'm going to vote no.
Mapps,
I'm really excited to see this project move forward. It helps us make important steps towards protecting the environment and having a sustainable community. I vote aye.
Rubio.
I too hope that we can do better when it comes to minority owned subcontractors. I am, however, encouraged that Commissioner Mapp's office and BES will continue to find ways to provide greater opportunities. And we're here as partners, so I vote aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Wheeler.
I would like to thank Commissioner Mapps. I'd like to thank the Bureau of Environmental Services for their hard work on this project, and Kathleen at the end of the line as the procurement officer. I want to thank you for your terrific work as well. I vote aye.
Okay, I would like to go ahead and go to 608 since Kathleen is here. We might as well just focus on these. And I think the other people that are waiting on time certain. So Keelan, could you please read 608?
Accept bid of Interlochen Inc. for the Outer Halsey Safety Northeast 114th Avenue to Northeast 162nd Avenue project for $2,555,260.
And looks like it's you, Mayor Wheeler.
Yep, this is a procurement report to execute a construction contract to add pedestrian facilities to Northeast Halsey, which of course is a high crash network street. The facilities will include sidewalk infill, enhanced lighting, an ADA accessible curb ramp upgrade, in fact, several upgrades. And once again, Interim Chief Procurement Officer Brenis Marua is going to here to present this report as well.
Thank you. For the record, Kathleen Brenis Marua, Interim Chief Procurement Officer. And with me is Steve Zigathy, the Capital Program Manager with the Bureau of Transportation. We're here to recommend authorization to enter into a contract with Interlochen Incorporated for the Outer Halsey Northeast 114th Avenue to Northeast 162nd Avenue project. On March 3rd, Council authorized procurement services to issue a solicitation for this project with an engineer's estimate of $2,609,387, and the confidence level was moderate. Bids were received on May 4th, and we received 7 bids. Interlochen submitted the lowest responsive bid in the amount of $2,555,260. The city's aspirational 20% subcontractor and supplier utilization goal applied. Interlochen has committed to subcontract 49.6% to firms certified by the state's Certification Office for Business Inclusion and Diversity, as identified in the report before you. They are self-performing 48.5% of the work and subcontracting the remaining 1.9% to non-certified firms. Interlochen is in full compliance with all city contracting requirements, and I hereby recommend that Council accept this report and authorize execution of the contract. Happy to, again, to answer questions about the procurement process. Steve is here and can address questions about the project itself. And I also understand that Kendall Miller, the owner and president of Interlochen, is also in attendance.
Thank you, Kathleen. Colleagues, any questions? And Mayor, would you like to officially move the report?
Yes, I'd like to move the report to accept the bid of Interlochen Inc. for the Outer Halsey Safety Northeast 114th Avenue to Northeast 162nd Avenue project.
Mayor?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Keelan, please call the roll.
Hardesty.
I want to take a moment to thank Kendall Miller for working with procurement to make this contract better. The first time it came to City Hall, I had a lot of concerns about this contract. And I think what it shows is that when a private sector partners with the public and shares the same values, we can do better. I want to also thank you, Kathleen. I know, I'm sure this was a stressful process, but at the end of the day, I am proud to vote yes for this contract. And I want Mr. Miller to know that I see you and I thank you for the changes you made to give me the confidence to support this proposal. I vote aye.
Maps.
Aye.
Rubio.
Thank you for bringing this forward, and thank you, Kathleen, for all your help and your good work. I appreciate the contracting goals. I vote aye.
Ryan.
Yes, wonderful work on the contracting goals. And it is great to have Kendall Miller here in our presence. And thank you for adapting. I vote aye.
Wheeler.
I vote aye.
Okay, Keelan, and I want to thank everyone for being patient on item 592, but this would be our last one in this category. Trying to be respectful of those who are on the call for these items. Let's do 609.
Accept bid of Just Bucket Excavating Inc. for the North Lombard Street, St. Louis to Richmond project for $3,644,962.
Mayor Wheeler.
This is a procurement report to execute a construction contract to renovate and enhance the North Lombard roadway between St. Louis Street and Richmond Street. This project will remove buried streetcar rails to improve the durability of the roadway, build ADA accessible curb ramps at all corners, and to enhance safety for drivers and pedestrians alike with the addition of better lighting. And we have Interim Chief Procurement Officer Kathleen Brenes-Marua here to, I think for the last time today, to present this report.
Yes, Mayor Wheeler, thank you. I'm Kathleen Brenes-Marua, Interim Chief Procurement Officer. I'm here to recommend authorization to enter into a contract with Just Bucket Excavating Incorporated for the North Lombard Street, St. Louis to Richmond project. On December 2nd, 2020, Council authorized procurement services to solicit the project with an engineer's estimate of $3,440,000. The Bureau of Transportation rated the project estimate confidence level as moderate. Procurement Services issued an invitation to bid, and bids were opened on June 8th, 2021, and we received 5 bids. Just Bucket Excavating Incorporated submitted the lowest responsive bid in the amount of $3,644,962. The city's aspirational 20% subcontractor and supplier utilization goal applied. Just Bucket Excavating has committed to subcontract 29.9% to contractors certified by the State Certification Office for Business Inclusion and Diversity, as identified in the report before you. Additionally, Just Bucket Excavating is a certified disadvantaged minority business enterprise and are self-performing approximately 51% of the work. Thus, 80.9% of the project will be delivered by certified contractors. Just Bucket Excavating Incorporated is in full compliance with all city contracting requirements, and I hereby recommend you authorize this contract.
Thank you, Kathleen. Colleagues, any questions? Mayor, would you like to move the motion?
Sure, I would move that we accept the bid of Just Bucket Excavating, Inc. for the North Lombard Street, St. Louis to Richmond project.
Second.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Keelan, please call the roll.
Hardesty,
Kathleen, I hope you see today as a good day. 4 out of 5 of your procurement proposals are proposals that I am proud to support. I know that we have moved a long way since I got here 3 years ago, and I'm really excited with the direction, with the new director that has just been hired. We're going to do some amazing work moving forward. Today certainly highlights that with 4 of these 5 proposals really living up to the values that we say we as a city are moving forward. And so I'm very happy to vote aye on this contract.
Maps,
Aye.
Rubio,
Thank you again for bringing this forward, and thank you again, Kathleen, for your great work. I also appreciate, again, the strong involvement of COVID certified firms in this contract. I vote aye.
Ryan,
Yes, thank you, Kathleen. I gotta say, I know that stretch of the Lombard really well, and it's exciting to see this progress and great work in terms of procurement and justice. I vote aye.
Wheeler,
Well, this will make a huge improvement in that area. And I am guessing that the folks who live nearby are saying hallelujah to this. I want to thank Commissioner Hardesty, the Bureau of Transportation, and of course, the Office of Management and Finance, and you, Kathleen, for your great leadership on this. I vote aye.
Thank you. And if I can just take a minute to say this is a great day, and truly appreciate today's comments and all the support that you all have given me in the past 7-8 months as interim. So thank you.
You're most welcome, Kathleen. Okay, Keelan, we can now go back to time certain at 10:15. Thank you all for being patient on item 592.
consider proposal of 340 Northwest Gleason for demolition review and adjustment review approval, and Bureau of Development staff recommendation for denial for a contributing building, the old Blanche House at 340 Northwest Gleason Street in the new Chinatown, Japantown National Historic National Register Historic District LU 21-029602 DMAD.
Okay, colleagues, I want to start off by amending my motion and move a new motion to tentatively approve the demolition and adjustment with the following conditions. Council Clerk, can you please put up the slide on the screen?
President Ryan, let me check with my staff to see if we have that available.
Okay, great. As you know, the written record closed last night at 5 o'clock, and we now can put this on the screen. And then when that's up, we could have the city attorney could read the conditions for accessibility purposes, please. And we'll go.
Thank you, President Ryan. We're getting it right now.
That's all good. And again, thank you everyone that's been waiting for this item. I know we're a little 15 minutes off. There it is. Can I have legal counsel please read the item?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Lauren King.
Good morning, Lauren.
And also, before I read it, I will just state for the record that individuals that previously testified have been invited as attendees, and they are on the call not as panelists but as attendees, and do have the capacity to raise their hand should they need to object for the record. But there is no public testimony today. It sounds like this is not the motion. I'm just getting a message that this is the Keelan, I'm going to resend you the motion that I think Commissioner Ryan intends to have me read.
Okay, yes, thank you. If you want to
I
send
know
it.
that there's a couple of motions flying around that may have been the earlier version. So the one that I just sent you now, I believe is the motion he's hoping to have me read.
Oh, thank you. Okay, let me pull that up really quick.
Thank you, Keelan. And can you make it the entire screen? Actually, or I can just read from my version. Well, for the public, so the public can see it. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. The historic resource demolition review and adjustment is approved subject to the following conditions. Prior to the issuance of the demolition permit, the property owner will request the formation of a stakeholder committee with the following representative members. 1, Executive Director of the Japanese American Museum of Oregon or board member of Japanese American Museum of Oregon. 2, a representative of the Portland Japanese American Citizens League as designated by the Executive Director of the Japanese American Museum of Oregon. 3, a member of the Old Town Community Association as selected by its board. 4, a historian/architect with the knowledge of the district and its history. 5, executive director of Blanchet House or a member of the Blanchet House board. And 6, a representative of the Harrington Health Clinic. The property owner will consult with the historic review staff at the Bureau of Development Services to invite the historian/architect. If Blanchet House no longer owns the property, representative members 5 through 6 will be selected by the property owner. B, the property owner shall invite participation in the stakeholder committee in writing to each member identified above by certified mail. The written invitation shall include a request for an initial meeting within 30 days of the final effective date of this decision, and the stakeholder committee shall hold a meeting within 45 days of the final effective date of this decision. The meeting can be held through remote access. The stakeholder committee can meet more than once for this purpose. C, the stakeholder committee shall document the structure through such methods as documentary, physical, or pictorial evidence and advise the property owner on the retention of historical, physical elements prior to the issuance of the demolition permit. In no case will this requirement be interpreted to restrict or prohibit the demolition of the building. D, the committee shall review and the property owner shall share the findings with the historic review staff of the Bureau of Development Services no later than 60 days after the initial meeting date. 2, historic resource review will be required for any new development of the site. 3, no later than 120 days after the initial stakeholder meeting, the stakeholder committee must review and summarize the known, written, and oral history of the people who use the site from its construction around 1905 to present and its relationship to the new Chinatown Japantown Historic District. The committee shall submit recommendations to the Blanchet House and its partners on feasible and meaningful ways to reflect, revive, and honor that human history in the uses within the new building. Committee recommendations must include meaningful, substantive efforts to convey Japanese cultural heritage. Interpretive signage alone shall not be deemed adequate. 4, Blanchet House and any subsequent owner must use reasonable efforts to incorporate these use recommendations into the future redevelopment. In no case will this requirement be interpreted to restrict or prohibit demolition of the building. This decision must be recorded in the property records of Multnomah County, and these conditions continue to apply and run with the land. If Blanchet House is not involved in the redevelopment of this site, any development must also comply with the conditions above. And that is the entire condition.
President Ryan, was that a motion, and do you need a second?
I was about to say I accept the motion that was just read.
So just to clarify, Commissioner Ryan, you said you were amending your motion.
Yes, that was the language I got from you all, correct?
Yeah. So as so you're amending your motion that's already on the table. So you do not need a second. It's already on the table, and you have just amended it.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much. I see now we're in questions and comments, and I see that Commissioner Rubio's hands up. Commissioner Rubio.
Thank you. I have a question about, I know that for the record, when the record was open, we had what seemed to very similar versions from the Japanese American community and also from Blanchet. So can you walk us through then what pieces are reflective of the Japanese Americans letter? I see the language is very close to Blanchet letter. So I'd just like to know where other parts were incorporated as well. And then I also want to know if we can reflect on number 2 under the composition of the stakeholder committee. I think it might just be a slight edit or oversight, but on the Japanese American community's letter, it says a representative from the Japanese American community as selected by Japanese American Museum of Oregon. And the other version says Japanese American Citizens League.
Thank you, Commissioner Rubio. Was that question directed to?
I don't know who. I guess maybe to the city attorneys, I just want to understand the points of convergence, and then what is legally permissible, and then what are the things constitutionally and legally not permissible, and then where are discretion. That's what I would like to know.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Rubio. So the first part of your question asked what are the distinctions between the two amendments, and the main distinctions, there are, as you identified, some distinctions in the makeup of the stakeholder committee, and we can revisit that because that's your second question. There also includes the Japanese American testimony. The testimony that came from what I'm going to call the coalition states that before demolition, Blanchet or the current owner will submit a new concept for development incorporating the committee recommendations. So that's one distinction. The next distinction that I see is that the stakeholder committee's recommendation will be considered an approval criterion when the new development is approved. That's another distinction. And then the third distinction I'm seeing is that the coalition is recommending that council impose a condition that requires the site always include a low-income healthcare facility. those are the four, including the stakeholder committee. Regarding the stakeholder committee, the coalition asks for a representative from the Japanese American community as selected by the Japanese American Museum of Oregon, versus the commission. The condition is read, as I just read, says a representative of the Japanese American Citizens League as designated by the executive director of the Japanese American Museum of Oregon. And I do not know the distinction between the Citizens League and the community. Both would be selected. Both conditions have it identified. Actually, no. Only the condition as proposed by Ryan says it would be designated by the executive director. So again, for clarity, because I know I'm kind of mumbling as I'm fumbling through these multiple versions. One, the coalition is saying a representative from the community as selected by the museum, just generally, it doesn't say whom. And then the condition as proposed by Ryan says a representative from the Citizens League as designated by the executive director of the museum. So it's a little bit more specific.
Hey, Brian. How's it going? Good. I think I have an emergency going on.
Someone needs to mute. Thanks.
Okay. So those are the distinction. And then the other distinction between the two, I'm just making, is the coalition is recommending a representative for the healthcare clinic. Commissioner Ryan's motion says a representative of Harrington Healthcare Clinic. So it's a specific, it's more detailed. And then the coalition asks for an architect or developer experienced in the preservation and interpretation of historic sites, whereas Commissioner Ryan's motion says an architect or historian with knowledge of the district and its history.
And those are the only places?
Those are the
further.
I went through those other distinctions initially. So those are the distinctions. What I just walked through now is the distinctions of the stakeholder committee, and what I earlier discussed was generally. So as I see it, I think I captured four main distinctions. The makeup of the stakeholder committee is slightly revised between the two. The coalition is asking that prior to demolition, the Blanchet submits a plan for a concept to BDS for the new building. Number three, the coalition is asking that the stakeholders' recommendations becomes an approval criterion for review of a new building. And number four, the coalition is asking that the new site include a low-income healthcare facility.
And the second part of my question was what parts are legally permissible and constitutionally permissible?
Okay. So regarding the makeup of the stakeholder committee, that is a decision that council can make. Hold on, just a moment, please. Would it be useful, Commissioner Rubio, if we could recess so I could give you legal advice off the record rather than providing legal guidance on the record? Would we take a brief recess so that you can get legal guidance?
Absolutely. Will 10 minutes be enough?
It's enough for me. Is that work for you, Commissioner Rubio?
Okay. Why don't we do a even number? Let's convene at 11 o'clock. Okay. Reconvene at 11 o'clock. Did I exaggerate?
That works. And Commissioner, your staff has my number. Maybe Rico can connect us.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Recording stopped.
Right, so I see Lauren King is back on too. Thank you, Lauren. Why don't we go ahead as we reconvene on this item? Lauren, if you could give us maybe perhaps an update.
Okay, so I'm just from a procedural standpoint, Commissioner Ryan's motion is on the table. It's the motion that I read. That is the main motion and is on the table for council to vote before they can consider a different motion. That motion could be amended should a member of the council choose to do so. And then if the amendment is just amending that motion, alternatively, if it is a new motion and substantively different, then it will require us to dispose of Commissioner Ryan's motion first before taking up the new motion.
Thank you, Lauren. So we have an active motion on the table, and we also have a hand up with Commissioner Hardesty. Why don't we take your comments, Commissioner Hardesty, before we go on to go further? Thanks, and then we can vote on the motion.
Commissioner Hardesty, can I just say one quick thing before you? I want to note one other thing for the record. I outlined the distinctions between the two conditions. There is one piece that I neglected to identify, which is the coalition is also asking that council base its decision on a different approval criteria. That approval criteria was not noticed in the mailing or in the staff report, so it would not be appropriate for council to base its decision on that approval criteria. I did not have an opportunity to state that for the record before.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Council President Ryan. I just want to make sure Commissioner Rubio is comfortable with us moving forward and her questions have been answered.
May I answer? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say Commissioner Rubio.
No, sorry about that. Yes, my questions have been answered, and I do have an amendment to propose to this amendment.
Thank you. Council President Ryan, I guess for me, to the motion, I think it's important that that the community pick their representative to serve on this board rather than executive director as proposed by you. But otherwise, I support the amendment. I appreciate the timeline because I had concerns that this could drag on indefinitely. I think the only question I'm going to need answered before I'm ready to vote on your amendment is whether or not the building would withstand another 6 months of in the current condition that it's in. And Lauren, I don't know who could answer that question.
Commissioner Hardesty, I don't know if that information is already in the record. Tim Herron is the one that's going to be most familiar with the record. And Tim, I guess I would ask you, is the information in the record whether the building can withstand 6 months? And if that information is not in the record, I do not think now would be the time to put it in the record without us reopening the record.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Tim Herron, Bureau of Development Services. There's nothing in the record that states it will fall down at a certain period of time in the near future.
So there's nothing, just to be clear, there's nothing in the record that addresses it one way or another, either whether it would last 6 months or not. There is no evidence either way on this question. Is that what you're saying, Tim?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have an active motion and amendment on the table. My understanding is we have to either vote on that or not, right?
Question of, excuse me, President, could I just ask a question of clarification?
Sure.
Um,
Do you see Commissioner Rubio's amendment as a friendly amendment?
So I want to be clear about what Commissioner Rubio's amendment is. I guess I think she indicated she'd like to make an amendment, but I don't think we heard what the amendment was.
Yeah, I was looking for some direction. Sorry, I wasn't clear about when's the right time to introduce that proposed friendly amendment.
So if you are amending perhaps you can describe what the amendment is, and then I can, and then we can walk through.
Yeah, I would like to introduce an amendment or propose that the community representatives are reflective of the community choice, as Commissioner Hardesty said. So it would be to adopt the language stated in alignment with the letter from the coalition for those community representatives.
And so for the record, what I'll state is it would amend, Commissioner Rubio proposes to amend 1A2 to say a representative from the Japanese American community as selected by the Japanese American Museum of Oregon, and strike the current language which says Citizens League as designated by the director of the museum.
Yeah,
that's okay. And so that would be an amendment that Commissioner Rubio has made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and so I think now would be the time to vote on that amendment. And then after council votes on that amendment, depending on the outcome, then the main motion, Commissioner Ryan's motion, is either amended or not. And then we can move on to deal with that main motion.
I see confused faces, but that makes perfect sense.
So, Keelan, so council can vote on an amendment to Commissioner Ryan's motion.
Okay, thank you, Lawrence. Hardesty. Maps.
Aye.
Rubio.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye.
Okay, now we are back to the original motion, correct?
Yes, so now Commissioner Ryan's motion as amended, council can deliberate and vote on that motion.
And there's one final vote after this, correct?
No, that is the vote because it's a vote. Your motion was to approve the demolition and the adjustment with that condition. And it is a tentative vote. And then council will return with findings once that vote, if that vote passes, then we set the date for findings.
And before I forget at the end, let's do some calendaring on that to make sure that we reach the criteria on dates. Okay.
Please. Thank you.
All right, sure. So Keelan, call the roll, please.
Hardesty.
I want to appreciate the public interest in this property and the due diligence that led to us having this conversation today. I especially want to appreciate Commissioner Ryan and being very thoughtful and proposing an amendment that could build the bridge between different interests. I also want to really appreciate Blanchet House for the decades of commitment to Old Town and to our most vulnerable people who are in Old Town. I want to also say to the Old Town community that it has waited for a long time for the city to continue to invest in the Japanese culture and to preserve that culture. I see you. I support you, and I support the efforts to ensure that the historic heritage is preserved. I do not want you in any way to believe that this vote somehow negates my commitment to ensuring that the city keeps its promises to make sure that we create a thriving Japanese legacy in Old Town, and that we continue to maintain it and hold it up as part of Oregon's history, not just the Japanese community's history. We are in this together as we come out of COVID. We as a community must come together to ensure that we are protecting our most vulnerable people. And again, to Blanchet House for your decades of service, I am very grateful to you. And I am glad that we're coming to a conclusion that we can all support. I am happy to vote aye.
Maps.
Colleagues, this decision weighs heavily on me. I was moved by the testimony of representatives from the Japanese American community at a recent hearing. They presented compelling arguments about the cultural importance of this structure. However, at the same time, anyone who looks at this site can see that the current structure fails to honor that history. The building is crumbling and fenced off. It hurts livability in the neighborhood and is a safety hazard. Now, I believe that the conditions drafted by our city attorney will do a better job of reflecting this cultural history than requiring the current structure to remain in place. I look forward to reviewing the recommendations of the stakeholder group. I hope that the stakeholder group will develop a vision for this space, which both serves our community and celebrates Portland's Japanese American heritage. For those reasons, I vote to approve the application for demolition, subject to the conditions outlined in the amendment. I vote aye.
Rubio.
Colleagues, I want to thank you all for the willingness to open the record and take additional testimony. It was really, really important, and I think it was very helpful. This is still a very complex legally and procedurally situation, but I also appreciate your patience today so that I could be sure that I'm getting it right as well. I believe, we were operating a little bit in the dark initially, but this additional week has brought us more useful information. I want to thank the Japanese American community and individuals that came to council and expressed their concerns. I also understand that at times you find that, through process, we find out about things as communities at the 11th hour. So I understand how this might have played out and probably did play out. And so I also want to publicly apologize as an elected official for the way governments have historically erased the legacy and cultural history of your community in this community, as well as all BIPOC histories in our community. And I must say, I wish we could go further and had more time to bring us closer to what your community is envisioning. But time and this process and these constraints are preventing us from there. But I truly believe this is a very close alignment, as close alignment as we can get in this time frame and for what we're represented right now and with my colleagues. So I want to also thank the folks at Blanchet House for their willingness to stay at the table and work with this council on getting closer as well. And I'm hopeful for the benefits of this site and this collaboration of this group in the future. And again, I want to thank Commissioner Ryan and his team for their leadership on this as well. I vote aye.
Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Blanchet House leadership. Your willingness to pivot and work with the Japanese American stakeholders and provide us with a workable solution says volumes about your organization's culture. The same organization that did not miss a beat to serve the House's residents during COVID-19. And to those who testified and worked with Blanchet House from the Japanese American community, thank you so much for your willingness to meet and move forward together. I do have optimism that we will witness expanded services for House's residents of our city in a building that honors Portland's Japanese American history that is forever woven into the fabric of Portland. I vote aye.
Wheeler.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Commissioner Ryan and Commissioner Rubio for working together and bring this compromise to bear. I think it's important. I want to acknowledge the importance of preserving cultural history in our community. And I think all of us were moved by the testimony of the Japanese American residents in our community who stepped forward to request that their history be acknowledged here. And I'm glad they did. I think it's important that we do acknowledge that history. I also want to thank the Blanchet House. They do such incredible work in this community. My daughter is actually sitting next to me, and she, from time to time, has the opportunity to volunteer at the Blanchet House along with her mother and of course, my staff. have on occasion gone and helped serve lunch. It's really a terrific organization. They have a strong vision for the area where the building currently exists. They've expressed that vision over a period of a number of years. I've been enthusiastically supportive of that vision then as now. And I think with this amendment, Commissioner Ryan, that you put on the table, there's actually an opportunity for a really strong win-win. Commissioner Rubio, thank you for just your thoughtfulness in terms of your approach on this. Great work, all. I'm happy to support it. I vote aye.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Lauren. We just voted on the amendment, and I think we have one more vote, correct?
Yeah, so just to be clear, because Commissioner Ryan started this with making a motion and a second, that vote can be the vote on his amendment that introduced, and now we would vote on the entire decision, which is essentially the same, it reflects what his motion is. So one more quick roll call, please, Keelan.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Maps,
Aye.
Rubio,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Now let's go back to item 610, Keelan.
Amend street vacations code to align with updates to the street vacation manual and associated Portland Bureau of Transportation policies.
Thank you. This is an emergency ordinance. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you. Took me a minute to get back to the real stuff that the other stuff that we're working on today. Please give me just a moment. Everything closed up on me. Thank you very much. My apologies, my computer locked up. I see that I have David here from the Department of Transportation. I'm just going to turn it over to him and have him save me by myself.
No problem, Commissioner. No problem at all. Hi, I'm David McEldowney. I'm the right-of-way acquisition supervisor for the Bureau of Transportation. And what I have before you today is an ordinance to amend some language in chapter 17.84 of City Code. Well, it's some small changes. It's important that we do. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you really quickly. And let me know when you can see that. Okay, great. And I will start the slideshow here. Okay, I wanted to give you a little bit of history, first of all, for what we're trying to do today. This is something that we actually started pre-COVID. So back in late 2019, we were approached by the auditor's office who wanted to essentially get out of the street vacation business. Well, PBOT does the majority of all the street vacation work. There were some items that the auditor's office did in the way of certifying petitions and advertising in the DJC. And Tony Anderson on the staff was retiring. And so they were kind of wanting to get out of that business and hand that over to PBOT. And PBOT agreed to take that over. And there were some other changes that needed to be made that we were working on. We were also putting together changes to admin rule and putting together a street vacation manual. And then COVID-19 hit right as we were working on all that, and it kind of got shelved. So today what we're wanting to do is bring this forward for council to make some considerations on. And there's really not a whole lot here. These are some key changes. What we did was we added a definition for street vacations. We made the authority clear for the director to establish rules and procedures. One of the things that was in ORS 271, which guides street vacations throughout the state, is it calls for a recording officer, and whether it was the city auditor's office doing the work or PBOT, there is no such thing as a city recording officer at the city of Portland. So the easiest thing to do is we're asking council is to effectively make PBOT's director the city recording officer for the purposes of ORS 271, so that we're actually in conformance with that. We're also removing all the references to the auditor's office throughout there, since they're out of the game now, and then just eliminating outdated language and duplicative language. And with that, that's the end of my show, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, David. And I just wanted to say, I think it also provides clarity for the public, right? That they don't have to go to two city bureaus to get this issue, their street vacation approved. Excellent presentation. Thanks for saving me, David. Back to you, President Ryan.
Okay, this is emergency ordinance. Any questions or comments? And do we have any testimony on this item?
No one is on the call for this item.
Okay, so seeing no questions or hands up, let's call the roll.
Hardesty.
Thank you, David, for your good work. I think I also want to put on the record that the auditor's office is in full support of this change, and it's good public policy. I vote aye.
Maps.
I want to thank Commissioner Hardesty and David for this ordinance today. And as long as I have the floor, I'd like to recognize David for the incredible work he did helping open up the Ankeny food carts, which are up and operating right now. David was an indispensable player in making that happen. That's one of the many reasons why I'm happy to vote aye today.
Rubio.
I also want to thank Commissioner Hardesty for these great changes. It is good government. And also, David, thank you for all your work on this. We appreciate your work to make it more clear and concise. I vote aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye.
Okay, colleagues, we're going to loop back to 592 for a moment, because remember when I said we needed to do some calendaring? So I failed to connect with Lauren about that. Lauren, you back?
Hi, sorry about that. I apologize.
It's okay.
So I was able to, the code requires that the prevailing party draft the findings and then provide them to BDS in our office. The applicant is going to provide the findings no later than August 11th to BDS and the city attorney's office, assuming that works for you, Tim. That does work. And then council can take up the item on either August 18th or 19th. Keelan, do you have a time? Either of those days, it would be a quick item.
Yes, we could do 9:45 on Wednesday, the 18th.
Okay.
And then I just want to make sure that everyone knows Commissioner Hardesty has a scheduled absence that day.
Okay. I think that is okay, as long as that's okay with Commissioner Hardesty. Yeah. Okay, so the record has been closed, the record will remain closed. Council has already made a tentative vote, but council will reconvene to adopt the final findings on Wednesday, August 18th at 9:45 a.m. And the applicant will provide draft findings to the city attorney's office and BDS no later than August 11th. Okay. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Lauren. And now, Keelan, we could go to item 611.
Authorize application to the Federal Transit Administration Passenger Ferry Grant Program in the amount of $3,321,723 for the Friends of Frog Ferry pilot project.
And this is an emergency ordinance, and I turn it over to Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Council President. The ordinance before us will authorize the city and our nonprofit partner, Friends of Frog Ferry, to seek funding via a federal grant program tailored specifically for passenger ferry systems. As all of you know, I'm a big supporter of providing better and more affordable transit options for Portland residents, and the route for this pilot will more directly connect people living in St. John's and Cathedral Park and offer a faster, more direct, and affordable way to access the thousands of jobs in our central city. I want to be clear. I want to be clear to the council that if this grant application is successful, the federal funds will be passed on to Friends of Frog Ferry to lead the planning, implementation, and operation of the ferry pilot. I am not asking the council, nor do I support the concept that the city take ownership of a ferry system that is by its very nature regional in scale. But I'm happy to help Friends of Frog Ferry explore new and creative ways to enhance transit services for the people of Portland. Mauricio, as supervising planner with PBOT, and Susan Bladholm from Friends of Frog Ferry are here to provide more details on the grant application and the pilot project. Thank you both for being here. Take it away.
All right, can you see?
Mauricio?
I'm Mauricio Leclerc. I'm a supervising planner at PBOT. I need to share a screen so somebody else is sharing, but we do have a PowerPoint presentation. I have James Paulson and Susan Bladholm. She's the president of Frog Ferry. I do have a few slides just to set up the framework for what this is. And then Susan and James will explain the excitement opportunity we have here. While that's being set up, can I do that? Still doesn't say that I can share. So
we can see the slideshow now.
Yeah, there's a video that is in it that I'm not sure this is it because this would be a PDF, I believe. So
Keelan, could you help us?
Yeah. So what I would say, well, just to use time, is that, there you go. Well, nope. Well, I think we're, let me try again. It's not allowing me. So let's run with the PDF for now, okay? So this is the right slide. Since the 1980s, the city of Portland has been talking about the opportunity of water transit. That was in the Central City 1988 plan, all the way to today's plan. So this is a very exciting opportunity. We don't have a ferry system. So therefore, if you can go back, the section 5307 provides the opportunity by the federal government to support transit systems in the country. So next slide. So this is an opportunity to tap into that. To be clear, what it covers is support existing transit ferry service, establish a new ferry system, which is what we're trying to do here, repair, modernize boats, such thing. Funds may not be used for operating expenses or preventive maintenance. So what this plan does is set up the foundation for operations. So what we have before you is a pilot in which Friends of Frog Ferry have worked for years to set up the capacity to and the expertise to write in an application like this and to operate it successfully. So the application is $3.3 million to fund capital expenses from the Federal Transit Administration. Also, Frog Ferry will look and provide 20% local match. No additional financial contributions from the city are to be expected. As I mentioned, for Friends of Frog Ferry will secure the additional funding and will be the lead in administering the project and running the pilot. If you vote for this and we successfully apply and get the grant, there's a further action in which we need to come back to council to accept the grant, as well as the city of Portland and Frog Ferry develop an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, so that we administer the funds and we can have that relationship with the federal government. So that's the mechanics. So if this is just to authorize the grant, if successful, we can come back. But for now, I'd just like to pass it on to James and Susan Bladholm, who will explain to you this exciting opportunity. So I think I'll share the mic now with Susan and James. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm James Paulson, and thank you for giving us this time to make a presentation. And I want to give a special thanks out to you, Commissioner Hardesty, for seeing our vision and helping get behind it with us. I'd like to start by telling people I'm a native Portlander, proud graduate of Portland Public Schools and Portland State University. I am the chair of Frog Ferry, and I have the opportunity as chair to work with some fantastic women and men We have a very active and engaged board. There's 8 of us. We meet monthly, and everyone's a volunteer that's on the board. And we have about 17 other supporters of all sorts of different areas of expertise that we've been able to engage in this project. So when you see this project isn't a project that someone just put together a beautiful PowerPoint. There's really an overwhelming, no way to calculate the amount of work and effort that's gone in to get it to this point. And so I am just honored to see where we're at and getting to share this with you and the rest of the people, because this is going to make some incredible change around the transportation in our region. And I want to introduce you to Susan Blantholm, who is the dynamic leader of this effort. Susan?
Great. Thank you, James. Thank you for your leadership. And hello, commissioners. Again, Commissioner Hardesty, thank you for believing in us. I can't begin to tell you how much it means. We have
I'm going to stop you for just a second. Can we stop the screen share so we can see all the fabulous faces that are here?
Let's see.
Excellent. There we go. Go ahead, Susan. I want us to be able to hear you. You've put a lot of work into getting here today. So
thank you. I so appreciate that. So can you see my screen now? It's on. Okay, because I need to take you through a PowerPoint, Commissioner.
Okay. My bad. I guess we're going back. It's all right.
I'm going to go back and share my screen again, but thank you so much. And I know we have a number of our board members who are also on the call here with James. And let's see if I can get this to go larger now. Okay, are you seeing the full screen now?
Not the full screen.
Okay, let me see if I can switch this over.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. We had it.
You had it? Oh, shoot. I don't know why it's going. It's a little bit. Come on.
Just know, Susan, we've all had these Zoom moments. So
thank you, because my heart's just racing. Okay, is that a full screen?
Not yet.
Oh, gosh.
I think I can try to, it's giving me the option to share it myself. I wonder if I can do that.
How about that? Is that full?
Perfect?
You see a PowerPoint?
We got it.
Is it going?
Okay.
So I'm gonna.
Mauricio, we've got dueling PowerPoints here. So yes, this is typically about an hour-long presentation that we are compressing down into 10 minutes. So I'm going to talk really fast. I know I've been talking with your staff members, and I just want to really give you a real quick kind of retrospective of 4 years that got us to this point and the City of Portland's support in getting us here and where we're going moving forward. So we are a nonprofit. We do have the mission, next slide, Mauricio, of building out a public transit system on our water. And it's very unusual for a grassroots effort to be doing this rather than a public transit agency. So we've been working very closely in collaboration with PBOT, ODOT, Metro, and TriMet for over 4 years now. This is a passenger-only ferry, so not with autos. So if you've taken the really big boats up out of Seattle, that's not us. So we're talking about the little one for passengers only. And there are lots of really important objectives behind our work. And our namesake is Frog and is based on the Chinookan mythology. And I'll show you some artwork here in just a bit. But that's really a big part of the ethos behind this, is being able to look to our Indigenous past and really provide an educational opportunity for what our community was like 300 to 30,000 years ago. We do know that really healthy communities are really strong in resilience planning. And we know that for river cities, having vessels on the water is considered a best practice. And we have a white paper that we published out on our website about that. The equity benefit is the #1 priority for James Paulson, our board chair, who is a workforce expert. And so really his intention is connecting low and medium income households with the central economic core of downtown jobs. There's a low future subsidy that longer term after 2024, we're going to need to come up with, but we're just focused today on the pilot project. And then over in the right-hand column, I really want to call out the need for us to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I mean, we just can't keep doing things the way we've always done it. And the ferry industry has really leapt ahead ahead of a number of other agencies in that they are running electrified around the world, particularly being led out of Oslo and Copenhagen. But you have electrified vessels up in Seattle and down in San Francisco as well. So kind of the future is now when it comes to electrified vessels. And then the other thing that's very important is most of the federal funding we get for transportation projects here in the Portland metropolitan area are 50-50 match of federal funding and local funding. For the passenger ferry grant program with the FTA, it's been an 80-20 match. And so that is what we're anticipating. The Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO, isn't out yet. We are anticipating that will be out next month. And that's why we're here before you today to ask for you to sponsor our application to the FTA. Next slide. And fundamentally, we just believe status quo planning isn't matching our transit needs. And we do believe that an effective transportation system provides choices. It really leverages the fundamental infrastructure we have here, and we are a river city. So we should be leveraging that infrastructure. And we really want to approach everything through a social and climate equity lens. Next slide. We know this is a proven worldwide concept. The top 80 river cities in the world all have some sort of water-based transit, and there are only 4 major river cities in our nation that doesn't use their river system for transit. Next slide. Where we've been. So the past 4 years were really spent on research and outreach. We were told by PBOT, ODOT, TriMet, and Metro, you guys need to go conduct these 4 studies. We raised about $700,000 to do it, which is a lot for a little nonprofit entity. We delivered the best practice case study report, and the City of Portland helped pay for that. So thank you for that. The demand modeling report, that was PBOT and TriMet helped pay for that, and Metro actually conducted it. And then there were 2 different studies that we kind of put together, which was the operational feasibility study and the finance plan. And PBOT provided the $40,000 match to an ODOT $200,000 grant to get us there. I want to point out, 4 years ago, Commissioner Saltzman had just that operational feasibility study in the PBOT plan, in the prospective budget for $350,000. So basically, the City of Portland got that for $40,000, and in addition, the finance plan. So my point as a taxpayer is it's been a good deal for the city. We are now focused on phase 2 here for the next 3 to 4 years, which is a pilot project. So the intention is to plan and take a year to plan the pilot project and then 2 years of operation. We want to go after and solicit this federal funding opportunity. We're here before you today. Put a vessel on order later in the year once the FTA announces the winner. We will have some dock enhancements likely at Cathedral Park, and we have been meeting with the 10 regulatory agencies, both state and federal, to make sure we're going to really be doing everything correctly and really want to mitigate any environmental impact on that. And that total funding request is $3.3 million. The vision down the road, 2024 forward, is for a steady state public ferry system that would have up to 7 vessels and 9 stops. And the reason for that number of vessels and that number of stops is really spelled out in our operational feasibility study that's out on the website. And a lot of that is about what's called headway, of how long passengers need to wait. You just want to make sure that you have that efficient system to make sense for passengers. Next slide. And if you click on the bottom, Mauricio, there you go. This is our animated full public ferry service vision for the 9 stops. I want to make a point that we at Frog Ferry have not determined these stops. This has really been working in partnership with the public transit agencies of where they believe we have the greatest need, and also where we have the greatest opportunities for providing the connections to and from the ferry stops. So it's often called first and final mile, so having that full connectivity is really key. We do know that during commuter times from Vancouver to Salmon Street, that drive time is about 44 minutes. We know on transit for OHSU and PSU students and faculty from Cathedral Park and St. John's neighborhoods to OHSU, River Place, PSU is over an hour. And by ferry, it's 25 minutes. So I think it's just really important to have a sense for that comparison. On the next slide, Mauricio. This is a very preliminary design of the vessel and what it would look like. You can tell it has a very low profile. So we have the challenge here of very low bridges, particularly that steel bridge. And so this low profile allows us to go under the bridges without having to lift the bridges that would impede any auto traffic. That lower railroad bridge on the steel bridge, we probably need to ask the railroads to lift about 5 days a year when we have high water. For the pilot project, and again, it's just one vessel, we would be running a traditional diesel engine, but we wouldn't be running traditional diesel fuel. It's called R99 or renewable diesel. It's actually better for our lungs and the environment than even biodiesel. It's 80% cleaner than traditional diesel. However, that said, the vision for this is for us to put in a fully electrified fleet. And it's going to take some time and planning for us to do the design engineering to put in shoreside charging infrastructures. And for the pilot project, we're looking at one vessel operating 6 days of the week, 14 hours a day from Cathedral Park to River Place using existing docks, knowing that we're going to have to enhance the South Dock at Cathedral Park. And we've been working with Portland Parks on that and the Oregon State Marine Board. And the ticket price would be $3 each way, $2 for honored citizens, and then free for children. Next slide. And this is a cross-section of some of the Chinookan art that has really provide inspiration for us. It was actually Tony Johnson, who's the chair of the Chinook Tribal Nation, that I was able to work with when I was working for the Port of Portland, and their resident artist is Adam McIsaac. And after we finished up a project, they gave me a lithograph as a frog as a thank you. And in Chinookan mythology, frog is credited with teaching the local people how to fish by going to the riverbanks and collecting nettles to stitch together to create nets. And up at the 1 o'clock position, you'll see a cross section of a canoe that would have been out on the Willamette River 300 years ago. And that is Coyote and the spirit of Coyote looking through the tribal chief's face to imbue wisdom. And so these are the conversations we've been having with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, and particularly their cultural resource leaders, to bring some of their heritage to our operation. Next slide. Our target audience, particularly for the pilot project, will be commuters, and we are working with OHSU and PSU. We will be, actually, they have offered to do a survey out to their students and their faculty and patients about what their needs are for the use of the ferry, but locals can come out on the ferry as well, particularly midday and on Saturdays. We know for the visitor market that ferries are a really big hit and getting that vantage point of seeing the city from the water. And then for emergency response, we know that having vessels on the water is really an important resource. Next slide. So contributions to date, just to give you a sense of who's been at the table helping us get here. The private sector conservatively has provided over $7 million in professional services for this. And so that is from legal counsel to accounting, to event planning, to catering, to running boats up and down the water as we've been doing our research. I mean, the list goes on and on. This PowerPoint today, our website, it's really been an amazing effort. The City of Portland, I referenced the two funds that you have previously provided to us that helped pay for the best practice case study report, and then also was the match for the ODOT STIF funds. So that was the $90,000 you already gave us. So we're not asking for any funding here from the city for this effort, but we are asking for you to sponsor our request to the FTA. The state of Oregon, through the ODOT Statewide Transit Improvement Fund grant program, has committed and awarded to us $700,000. So $200,000 helped pay for some of the research projects, and then $500,000 was awarded in May. That's really our first money in for the pilot project planning. Private foundations and donations already committed at $400,000. Murdoch Charitable Trust came in with $300,000 for us. That allowed me to start getting a paycheck. Last year, the Zidell Family Foundation, Travel Oregon, and then many smaller individual donors. Next slide. So just to try to summarize this on one slide, it would be a pilot project from beginning now through 2024. We would have a year of planning and then 2 years of operations. It's one vessel, and it's really to create confidence, to show people, hey, you can run a ferry out on the water, to gain a lot of valuable insights and data, to show everyone that this operation is feasible, and to test the public demand and what they like and what they don't like about it. We're especially focused on OHSU employees and patients. We know today there are 300 employees a day that commute from those neighborhoods Monday through Friday. Pre-COVID, it was 500. And for PSU students and faculty, it's 400 a day. There are very few transit options coming out of that neighborhood with over the 1 hour commute. And we can transport up to about 1,000 passengers a day. That's ambitious. And we are doing our projections based on a 50% occupancy. So we're trying to be very, very cautious in our numbers and what we promise. For those neighborhoods, we specifically have looked to Cathedral Park and St. John's because that is definitely a disadvantaged region of our community. 40% identify, more than 40% identify as non-white. Over 20% live below the poverty line. It's one of Oregon's most diverse communities, and over 87%, those that are commuting by single occupancy vehicle. We know we have an issue with worsening air quality. We do know that ferries provide a clean mode of transit, and I've already gone through the ticket costs. The next slide.
Excuse me, Council President, before we move on, I have a question for Susan. I'm curious how you decided the fare would be $3, knowing that's cost more than public transit does, and just want to see what the reasoning was behind that fare.
You know, I can't say that there is a science to it, except we looked at the total cost for the transit, and we're looking both at the pilot as well as the future state. And we know for the future state average fare, it's probably going to be about $5, because going like Vancouver down to downtown Portland, that's 15.5 nautical miles. And looking at average fares of other ferry services, there again are public ferry services that are subsidized. And then taking a look at what our total costs are and what the fare box portion is. And the fare box portion is a lot less on this, Commissioner, from ticket revenue, because we only have one vessel to run. You don't have the efficiency of multiples. So yes, while we would love to do a $1 fare, and you know, we talked about that. I just met with someone yesterday that said, I don't understand why you're not charging more than that, because people are going and parking and paying $15 to $20 a day at OHSU. So we went back and forth and said, how do we keep this really low and making sure we're setting the stage for the future ferry system? And also we want to make sure people see a value in it, that we're not completely giving it away. And we also want to make sure people get out and use it. You know, so in terms of the value of this and the value proposition, we feel like we're really providing a great value, and for the time advantage as well. So I'm so happy to take you through the full pro forma if you ever wanted.
No, I just wanted to say, Susan, as we're piloting it, we may have an opportunity to test whether during commute hours you would charge more. As we start looking at congestion pricing on our freeways, it might be a model that you would want to just incorporate into your future planning. When you think about if this is a resource for employers, then why aren't employers paying into investing in getting their employees to and from work, right? So I just don't want you to be limited by what we have today, because what we have today is changing rapidly. So that was why I asked the question. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I just wanted I wanted to know that you were at least thinking about that not being set in stone, and being something that we should play with once we win the federal dollars to actually test out our pilot.
I absolutely love that. We would love to do a free family Saturday sale. That's a conversation we're having with sponsors. So welcome that conversation, because that's really where we're living right now. And next slide.
Susan, I have a question as well.
Yeah.
And I apologize, Commissioner Hardesty, I didn't see your hand up. I was so absorbed with the presentation and forgot my role is to look for hands being up. Anyway, I was curious if Swan Island was discussed as a stop.
It sure has been. And Daimler was really, I think, our first major employer that signed on board for Frog Ferry. In fact, a senior engineer, Matt Markstaller, spoke at our first press conference 4 years ago. With the Superfund site and Swan Island, they had put in a request for a dock off of Daimler. And I think that's now been about 18 months ago, and it was denied. I think working through the Superfund, we'll see for the sediment research that's taking place through the end of this year. I think it's something that Daimler's interested in. And then Adidas as a major employer is as well. And, they've had the pretty significant subsidies for their employees. So again, we're really agnostic about where the docks are. It's really where can we best serve the community? And we do know, Commissioner Ryan, that putting in a new dock and that planning, design, engineering, and permitting will take some time. So it's partially, or a big part of it is why we focus on where we have existing dock infrastructure for this.
Now, the fact that you're pursuing that makes me happy, knowing how many employees we have in that area and the congestion we have on Greeley getting on to Swan Island. So thank you.
Absolutely. And so just summarizing the request, and Mauricio kicked it off so beautifully at the very beginning, is we are asking you to sponsor our request to the FTA. As a nonprofit, we can't directly apply for this funding. We need to go through a designated recipient, which is what the city is. So we want to be very clear that we will complete 100% of the application, all reports, and ensure compliance. And I like to think that our colleagues at PBOT are feeling a little bit more comfortable with us, because we have applied through TriMet for 2 of the ODOT STIF grants. And I think we would get a gold star that we've done everything we said we would do on time, kind of over-delivered on budget. And so they've already seen us be a really good partner that way and ensure that we're doing, really the work. So we will fulfill all the grant requirements. We will plan and operate the ferry. The city has no responsibility for costs for the pilot project, will not own it. In fact, we're going to lease the vessel, so we won't be owning it for the pilot either. We will carry all of the risk and the fundraising behind this. I just had a presentation with Oregon's congressional delegation, all of their staff, and Senator Wyden is leading the effort to have all of our congressional delegation write a letter of support behind this, as well as Senators Cantwell and Murray will both also be writing letters of support behind it. And then we're also going to be pursuing a co-sign letter from ODOT, TriMet, and Metro to back this effort. The next slide. And so the total dollar amount for the expense, and we have a very detailed pro forma behind this. If you ever would like to see it, I'm so happy to share it with you because it's actually very interesting, I think. for 3 years is 9.7 million. And we've really tried to be conservative with this because honestly, in my career, I've never been over a budget in my life, and I don't want to start here with this one. None of us can afford that. From the income projections, the state of Oregon, that STIF grant, we've already received. We are putting together a plan with a couple of our representatives here in the region for ARPA funding or going to the special session in the spring for 2.5 million. The FTA grant is the 3.3 million. So that's the one that we would like to partner with the city of Portland on. Sponsorships, 2.5 million. It's a big price tag, but we've got a really great list of sponsors. We have 2 prospective sponsors that have come to us that we're actually presenting to in the next week to get that kicked off. And then the Farebox concessions, to your point, Commissioner Hardesty, it's actually about 1.2 million for our projections on this. And again, we're being very conservative, but that's how we're building to the full expense cost. I just wanted you all to have kind of that snapshot. On the next slide is fundamentally, yes, we are looking to put a bus on the water, and we don't need to build out roads and rails to do so. The biggest mission here is really, as a river city, it's connecting people with a river. We have very few points of contact for people to get down to the riverfront. We work closely with organizations like the Human Access Project and Willie Levinson, and really share a mission of getting people connected to our green spaces. And really, our river system is one of our crown jewels of our community. It's why we're located here. And we just think this is a really wonderful opportunity for people not just to get over the river. We talk about being a bridge city often. We get over and around the river. We want to get people out on the river. We want to be a river city and not just a bridge city. So thank you for your consideration today. I so appreciate your continued support and confidence in us. And as I said to Commissioner Hardesty last Friday night, we are not going to let you down. We have an amazing team behind us. I'm so grateful to James and our board. And we do have 200 active volunteers serving on 9 committees. So we're ready to go if you're willing to sponsor us on this. So thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Any questions? I know we're on a time crunch right now. That was a great presentation. Do we have any public testimony as well on this emergency item?
Yes, we have one person on the line to testify for this item.
Okay, why don't we take that first?
Edith Gillis.
Hello, Edith.
Good morning. It seems like it's been about 4 decades of people excitedly dreaming together about this ferry. Can you hear me?
Yes, Edith, loud and clear.
And so I just want to say I'm enthusiastic about the ideas, but also the integrity and the teamwork that's been involved with this, the necessity of this, especially when it comes to multiple disaster resiliency. Yes, when you apply for this, please do so, but also add to that you must include more accessibility and disaster resilience and environmental regeneration, and have photovoltaic, not just for solar, but for nighttime other artificial lights, roof energy collecting and green roofs, so that you are grid independent. One of the advantages of this is when we have the multiple earthquakes and the gas line explosions, and we have the fossil fuel and chemical disaster area blowing up, that we will have other ways for people to communicate with each other and to transport necessary ways to save lives. So please also have that be grid independent. Include in this better public transparency and accountability. There's a really excited group that's broader than most projects have, but a lot of folks are still left out. Please use the safe, quiet drone footage as you have the Walker Corporation that does tunnels and pipes that you had for the Mount Tabor yards, and that you had at the Leash Botanical Gardens. Let folks be involved, get them engaged, and also include a lot more of the schools and Indigenous and different multicultural groups in the artwork and the education at each of the docks on the website, and having self-guided tours that people can do when they're taking the ferry, learning about different aspects of Portland and building activism and a love that has more effective political action. Please have more ways to invite and consider and respond to public input and better ways of modeling and changing the project. I want this to be an inspiration and a project that helps the city council members learn how to build on what Commissioner Hardesty has been saying all along, of really making it more accessible, more inspiring, more inviting, and more effective to get more people engaged and empowered, so they're not feeling cynical and angry and then resulting in drug addiction, violence, and protests that are counterproductive. So please make sure that you find ways to protect us from Zenith and other explosions, fire, oil drill spills, and the incredible fires and pollution that would endanger people's lives, and use this as a way to get people engaged with better zoning and better use of that area that is a way to sacrifice humans and instead make this vision bigger for all of us regionally.
Thank you, Edith. Appreciate your testimony. Colleagues, any other questions? Otherwise, it's emergency ordinance and we can go to the vote. Okay.
Hardesty.
First, let me thank Friends of Frog Ferry. Susan, your passion for this project, I met when I first showed up at City Hall in January 2019. Your enthusiasm has only grown, and the coalition that you've built has grown as well. And I just want you to know that I am so grateful that PBOT is partnering with you. I wish you much success. You are already plugged into our congressional delegation. And when a guy that sits on Ways and Means says he's there to help, believe him. And so I am very, very, very happy to vote aye and to support this effort. I look forward to seeing what comes out of it and what we learn as we continue to address our climate being devastated at the moment, and rebuilding it so that it's more resilient for the future generations. Thank you for all the work you did to get us here today. I vote aye.
Maps.
Colleagues, I'm thrilled to cast a vote in support of the Frog Ferry project. Both the city's comprehensive plan and Metro's regional transportation plan calls for a ferry system on the Willamette River. The purpose of this ferry is to improve access to the river, provide a valuable transit connection to those who live along it, and improve resiliency in the event of a natural disaster. This Frog Ferry will reconnect Portlanders to our waterways, support business recovery, revitalize our central city, provide critical backup transportation in the event of a regional emergency, and will provide an enjoyable and climate-friendly mode of transportation for parts of our town that are otherwise highly dependent on driving. I'd like to also express my thanks to James and Susan and to all the Friends of Frog Ferry for their tireless advocacy on behalf of the ferry. And I look forward to the Frog Ferry pilot project, which next summer will connect Cathedral Park and River Place. For those reasons, I vote aye.
Rubio.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty and PBOT for bringing this forward today. And thank you to Susan and the Friends of Frog Ferry for all your years of hard work on this. I too first learned about this project from Susan nearly 2 years ago, and Commissioner Hardesty took the words out of my mouth. Susan, you were just as enthusiastic about this project then as you are now today, and your enthusiasm is catching. It's been quite a journey for Frog Ferry, and I appreciate the opportunity to learn about your work. And I'm really eager and excited to see where this project goes and look forward to the update. I vote aye.
Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Chair James Paulson and the entire board. I was really noticing how you really galvanized a lot of the community to get behind this before you leveraged the public attention. Thank you for that. Susan, you're the right person at the right time to really give an example of a daily testimony that we're a river city. I forgot that it was going all the way to Oregon City. So the regional approach is brilliant. I look forward to being a part of the pilot. And I think your target's great. Good discussion about how it can improve. And yeah, I vote aye. Thanks.
Wheeler.
Well, it's just great to be at this important point. And Susan, I want to thank you and your organization and congratulate you for not only your bold vision, but your dogged determination in seeing that vision realized. You have that just incredible gift of resilience and an eye focused on the future. And it's been fun for more than 4 years watching this grassroots effort fledge. Community leaders have been working really hard to build momentum, and it's your leadership that's really gotten everybody to this point. You've worked collaboratively, you've done extensive outreach, you've made the effort to consult with ferry organizers and consultants around the country and around the world, and you've been very successful in raising the funds to conduct the research and feasibility studies to move forward. And I want to acknowledge that hard work on your part and your partner's part. Today, I believe Frog Ferry is equipped with the right leadership team and the knowledge to put a vessel on the water to test whether our residents will use the ferry to get to work, to get out on the water, and to test what it is like to leave their cars at home. I am very eager to see them be successful with this FTA grant application, and for me to be able to take my daughter out for a ferry ride a little over a year from now. And just coincidentally, we happen to be in a small city to the north of Portland. I can't exactly remember the name, but it does happen to have an incredible ferry system. And we were just noticing this morning a couple of ferries very similar in concept to what Frog Ferry has envisioned, full of commuters coming into this city, which will remain nameless. And so I am convinced, Susan, that your vision is a strong one, that it will be well received, that it will earn the broader support of the community. And I just wish you all the best as you continue to push this important vision. I vote aye.
Thank you. We'll move on now to item 612. Keelan, please read the report.
Accept report from Fire Marshal on houselessness and fire safety protocols.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, President Ryan. Colleagues, as this past historically dry spring set in earlier this year, I directed the Fire Marshal to create a set of recommendations on how to balance the need to help our houseless community wherever possible with the increasing risk of life loss due to fires. The Fire Marshal returned with a pair of protocols, which I then asked her to turn into a report that I could share with all of you and the public. Before we get into the presentation on the underlying report, I would like to make a motion to adopt a substitute. This substitution was included in the Tuesday memo and merely replaces references to street routes, who have been doing a lot of good work with the Fire Marshal's office with community groups. This change is meant to reflect that it is not my office or the Fire Marshal's intent for all the community collaboration to be done with street routes, but to be done with numerous community groups. And so I make that motion, Mr. President.
Yes, I'll second that.
It's been moved in second.
Yeah, it's been moved in second. Now, is there any discussion? Is there any other further, is anyone else presenting from the Fire Bureau?
Yes, what I just needed to put the amendment on the table before the presentation.
Sure.
Yes, so I still have more. I just wanted to make sure I did that.
Yep, moved in second.
So I realize that this is a difficult topic bringing these protocols forward was very difficult for me. I do not like sweeps, and I do not like that we have a shortage of housing that people can afford to live in our city. But as the commissioner in charge of the Fire Bureau, I cannot stand by and do nothing as people are at risk of dying from fire. It is my hope that we will all work on this policy in the winter to craft a strong city code change to protect everyone and to continue to expand options for houseless people living in our city. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Derek Bradley, my policy director from my office, and Fire Marshal, and then Fire Marshal Carrie Shamel, who will present on this resolution today. Thank you both for being here. Derek, I turn it over to you first.
Thanks, Commissioner, and thanks everyone, members of council. For the record, my name is Derek Bradley. I'm Policy Director for City Commissioner Joanne Hardesty. I'm going to walk through sort of a bit of the narrative background, how we got here, a touch, and then we'll turn it over to the Fire Marshal, who will be able to dive into the very technical aspects of these protocols. Then I'll share a couple of the next steps of how the commissioner envisions what we do next, and then questions from you all. As the commissioner mentioned, we had an extremely dry spring, and she wanted to get ahead a bit of the fire season. So she directed the fire marshal to work on some protocols in her capacity as, the expert the city employs in preventing fire deaths, and developed some protocols that examined how we keep people safe while also balancing the needs of our houseless community members. Before you are two protocols that deal with high risk areas that are very prone to the likelihood of fire danger or fires, rapidly moving fires, and how to manage camps that have a history of problematic fire mitigation efforts. Both of these, also at the direction of the commissioner and at the hard work of Fire Marshal Schimmel and her team, have information that will be able to be distributed to houseless community members and community activist groups that'll help provide definitive information about behavioral changes or where people need to move, as well as opportunities for engagement with community partners to try and prevent any usage of actual sweeps for either of these protocols. It's our hope that with expansive community participation, we'll get a lot of voluntary compliance as we try to keep people safe and minimize the impact that this has on our houseless community. The hope is that there will be some trainings that the fire marshal will conduct with some community outreach groups. We're planning to meet, hopefully have the first meeting on that Friday to start outlining those steps. And then after this fire season, return, talk to more community groups, talk to any office here that's interested in participating, and examine the lessons we learned from these protocols. And from there, develop over this, what will hopefully be a very wet winter, series of code changes to Title 31 to bring back to council before the next fire season, so we can establish a long-term permanent policy for how to manage this what will most likely, unfortunately, be an increasingly dangerous situation as climate change effects take hold. And with that, I will turn it over to Fire Marshal Schimmel, and feel free, if I misspoke in any capacity, Carrie, feel free to correct me on that.
No, that was great. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Derek, and thanks for your support, Commissioner Hardesty. Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion and work that's gone into these protocols. So like Derek mentioned, there's two different ones in this report. So I'm going to start with the first one here. So the first concept is the wildland, or I should say wildfire hazard areas. So we had multiple discussions on this as we were headed into this season. And the thought here is Portland Fire will every, whatever it comes out to be, May, June, before the wildland fire season hits or a burn ban, we will be providing maps identifying high risk areas based on our call volume. And then based on this map, we want to be boots on the ground, working with parks and community groups having outreach and education to individuals that may be camping in these areas and educating on the fire risk and danger. And hopefully voluntarily, these folks will be moving because of the high risk. So a lot of education and communication is already happening with these groups. So we're all having the same outreach message and safety messages. We already have signs posted. Portland Parks has done that as with the help with the public education group from Portland Fire. So really, we're hoping that's where it stops. We hope that as we meet individuals that we have these discussions, they understand. One of the ideas is actually to hand part of our outreach material is a map of the wildland hazard areas so they can actually see the areas that are high risk to help them make those decisions of where they may or may not camp. So the last part of this protocol is as a last resort, if someone is in the high risk areas refusing to leave, is to ask for the help from the Homelessness Urban Camping Reduction Program. And again, hopefully we won't have to get to that point, but that is part of that last resort. So that is the first protocol. So I'll stop there to see if anyone has any questions.
And I just wanted to add something really quick to this point before we move to the second protocol. Particularly with this protocol, this is not just about the concept that like houseless individuals camping in forests are going to be inherently irresponsible or fire starters. We're passing out butane ovens. We're doing a lot of education around safe practices and the burn ban in the houseless community. But these are areas where you can be 100% fire-free houseless camper, and someone completely unrelated to any camp you're involved in can just flick a cigarette butt into a pile of leaves, and suddenly you're in an inferno. And so this is very focused on, we can't have people in these places because the slightest spark could turn into a loss of life very quickly. And that's why it's such a really like firm line about this, is because it's not about being houseless. It's not about your behavior. It's about you're in a place that is inherently dangerous during the burn ban season. And I don't think that can be emphasized enough on this particular aspect. Seeing that, I don't see any hands or pressing anyone unmuting from the commissioner's offices. So Fire Marshal Schimmel, Protocol 2.
Thank you. That was a great point. So the second one, a little more complicated, but this is kind of throughout the rest of the city. So this is to help us look at these camps based on the illegal burning and aggressive behavior to our crew members as they run these emergency calls. So safety is definitely right now a challenge that our crews faces on these kind of the houseless fire calls that we're dealing with right now. So, and I think overall, we just want to make sure there's data supporting these difficult decisions. So the concept here is fire companies that will go out, who get called out on an emergency call and are faced with a fire, illegal fire, unauthorized fire, I should say, and or aggressive behavior, they will refer that call to the fire marshal's office. And we will be working with community groups who will help engage and provide outreach and education to these camps. And so again, a lot of training and communication, collaboration. So again, we have the same messaging and we all understand the safety and the fire hazards that we're dealing with. So on this one, if there's after that outreach, if there's a second offense, the same individual or, a camp as a whole that's being aggressive and or burning after outreach efforts have taken place, then we will go back and assess the situation. And then again, we may have to, at that point, ask for some help from HICR for the relocation of the campers. And again, the whole hopes is we never get to that point. But I think overall, just like with the protocol number 1, we are seeing a lot more fires and tent fires, RV fires. And, the hope here is that we are going to reduce these kind of hazard areas, just like we do in a building. We need to get out there and have that outreach and make sure that we're keeping everyone safe in our community, including the houseless and the housed.
And before opening the questions on that, there was one other portion of this that I wanted to touch on that was another great lift from the fire marshal's office. And that is that is the report out function, the report out ability on these camps. There's going to be, the fire marshal's team produced a tool to track all of the calls and services that fire, anytime there's a touch from fire on an endemic camp, it'll be tracked, and that'll be available to, not automatically, but upon request, both inside and outside City Hall. And it serves a couple of functions. One, if there's a challenging moment where fires interact with the camp, community members, community groups, houseless community members, activist groups, advocacy groups, they can get this printout, and the fire marshal can point at the line where there's a problem and say, this is the type of behavior that's going to cause an issue for us moving forward. This is a life safety behavior issue. We can't have this happening. It also serves the function that if there's a narrative existing where fire is just ignoring a camp, or that a camp is truly out of control, and that's not the case, this report will show to anyone that's interested in looking that the fire's actively doing fire mitigation in this area. They're being responsive to calls. And so I think it's a tool not just for enabling, again, pointing to a houseless community and being like, here's where you're doing something wrong. It's also a tool to community members that want to paint a negative narrative around houseless camping as inherently dangerous or unresponsive to fire concerns, and show, well, this is a group of people that are working with us. We come in and we do fire mitigation and education with them. And so again, this is not just this is not about demonizing houselessness. This is about education, opportunities for collaboration with community partners, and above and beyond all else, trying to keep people from dying in fires. And before we turn it over to questions and then roll call, I want to personally say, I don't know the history of all fire marshals in the city of Portland. I am willing to bet that Fire Marshal Schimmel has spent more time, or close to the top of the amount of time of any fire marshal, really considering and empathizing with the plight of our houseless community and taking the challenges that they're facing very seriously. And I personally have really appreciated that attention and empathy while working with her and her team. And so any questions on the second protocol?
Hey, thank you, Derek. Thank you, Carrie. Is there any public testimony on this? All right, Keelan, let's go ahead and call the roll. Oh wait, we had a motion on the table in a second. So we have to vote on that first. Is that true, Commissioner Hardesty? That's out there, okay.
Yes, that's correct. We're voting on the amendment now, right?
Got it.
Okay, right, okay. Hardesty?
That was an aye. Did you not hear that? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Max?
I just want to thank Commissioner Hardesty and the Fire Bureau for their leadership on this really challenging problem. As the commissioner in charge of environmental services, we have many open spaces which are also home to campers and vulnerable to fires, and frankly in the winter also vulnerable to floods. So I very much understand the stakes here. This is a really innovative step forward. I realize that this policy will evolve over time, and that was baked into the design. But ultimately, I hope that this program will both save lives and protect the environment. And for those reasons, I vote aye.
Rubio?
Just for clarification, is this the amendment or is this the?
Just the amendment.
Okay, aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Wheeler?
It could be one of those moments where he lost service.
Sure, okay.
He's on the phone, but he's muted.
Right, and then he said there'd be dead zones, but then it would be hung up, right? Let's count to three. 3, 2, 1. Okay, this passes 4-0. We will go to the motion.
Right, and now I think we need someone to move the report, and then we'll need a second, and then we can vote on it.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Hardesty?
I want to thank Fire Marshal Shamel for just being just a compassionate, empathetic leader in our community who really listened to housed and unhoused people in developing this protocol. It is absolutely important that we trust the experts in the field. And when a fire marshal says to me, I want to be proactive and get ahead of what we know will be a very dangerous fire season, I am proud to have her as part of my team. And I just also want to take a moment to really appreciate Derek Bradley, my policy director, who worked really hard with Portland Fire and Rescue and with our houseless community partners to ensure that we were incorporating everybody's perspective into this policy. We're not asking you to totally change public policy today, because we are going to learn from these two new protocols. But we will be back in the fall because, again, this is not one-off weather that we're experiencing. This is going to be our lived experience for a while until we turn the corner. Thank you again for your excellent work, Fire Marshal Shamel and Derek Bradley, and I'm happy to vote aye.
Maps,
Aye.
Rubio,
First, I want to lift up and appreciate the compassionate and community-centered approach that this policy takes. We're watching in real time other parts of our beautiful state and region burn, and we're reminded that climate change is real and that we must face the impacts head on. And that means it's our job as government to do what we can to mitigate these risks while also taking special care and attention to ensure that we work with our vulnerable communities to remove barriers to education and prevention. And so I'm so grateful to Commissioner Hardesty and her team. Thank you, Derek Bradley and the Fire Bureau for taking on this work to maximize safety and for all the extensive planning that's been done across bureaus on this issue, fire, parks, PBEM, OMF, BES, and the Joint Office. So thanks, everyone. I vote aye.
Ryan,
Yes, I want to start off by thanking Fire Marshal Schimmel for also the leadership of late around fireworks that we had earlier in the month. That was brilliant, and I was enthusiastically supportive of that, but I wanted to acknowledge that before I went further. I'm really pleased to vote aye on this because it was it's so thoughtful. And I love that it shows action. It also shows accountability, the fact that you're noting what action took place. So we have a paper trail, if you will, that shows what is going on when we're taking such action. I also like that you appropriately altered the first responder system within this. So it's just it's beautiful policy. It's going to be even better practice, and it will do wonders for community safety. Thank you, Derek Bradley, for your leadership, along with Fire Marshal Schimmel. I vote aye.
Wheeler,
Aye.
Okay, we are on to item 613. Please read the item.
authorize the Bureau of Environmental Services to acquire certain permanent and temporary property rights necessary for construction of the Portsmouth Force Main Valve Volt Monitoring Project through the exercise of the city's eminent domain authority, project number E10735.
Thank you. This is brought by Commissioner Maps. Is this a second reading?
Yep.
Okay, got it. So is there any testimony today? We don't take testimony for second readings. So anyway, we could go ahead and go to the vote.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Maps,
Aye.
Rubio,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Wheeler,
Aye.
Okay, on to item 614.
authorize bid solicitation and contracting with the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for the procurement of waterworks supplies at an estimated cost of $20 million.
Okay, Commissioner Maps.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Colleagues, this ordinance authorizes a competitive solicitation for waterworks supplies at an estimated cost of $20 million. These funds would be expended over a period of 5 years These supplies include, but are not limited to, valves, brass and copper fittings, bushings, sleeves, repair clamps, adapters, reducers, caps, plugs, and hundreds of other components necessary to maintain the city's water works infrastructure. These supplies are necessary because the Water Bureau is constantly in the process of repairing and maintaining and expanding the city's water infrastructure. Here today to provide us with more details on this ordinance, we have Ty Kovich, the Water Bureau's Director of Maintenance and Construction. Ty, welcome, and please tell us more about this.
Thank you, Commissioner Mapps and President Ryan, Mayor Wheeler, and Commissioners Hardesty and Rubio. I didn't know how to say it today with the mayor on the side circumstance. Today, we have what is typically a very routine initiative we bring every 4 or 5 years to City Council that helps us have the parts inventory that we need to maintain a system that has 130 years worth of different materials in it and different size pipes and components, as well as the build out and the demand from our sibling agencies and contractors and the system itself to have an inventory on hand to be able to maintain those supplies. The request overall is for $20 million over the next 5 years, and that assumes a near-term cost of $3.5 million for the upcoming year and up to $4.5 million in the 5th year. What's not routine about this version of the goods and service contract that we're bringing forward is that we are proactively pursuing a 20% minority participation component to this goods and services contract. Typically, we see that on the professional services side when we're letting contracts for major projects and such, but across the city, doing so on the goods and services side is less common, to the point that a recent article in OPB pointed out that over the period from 2016 to 2021, the city's goods and services side only had a 1% minority participation rate during that period. So to the theme that Commissioner Hardesty referenced earlier and has done so with us in many forums up to now of intentionality, we are proposing to use this contract, which has 671 unique components that we get from our suppliers, as an opportunity to try to advance a little bit into the goods and services arena and try to create an environment where minority firms can start to cultivate in that side of the equation. And it's not, I think there's good reason why some goods and services contract don't have as much effort on this as others, but this one has a diverse universe of components that our suppliers can work with others to help provide unique and nuanced pieces along the way. So we think it's a good opportunity. We've reached out to the suppliers that work with us, both the one that we have now, as well as others who will potentially bid on this, and inquired about their ability to meet a goal like a 20% minority firm participation rate. And our existing contractor responded to us and said, we will comply with whatever you put in your effort. And they are a West Coast firm that has presences all over the West, and California has pretty significant requirements. The greater Seattle area also has this kind of thing. And so this, I think, opens the door to us building some of that in Portland. And when I think just as a city employee, where we've come in the 5 years prior to now, you know, if we didn't take this opportunity now, 5 years from now, you know, we'd be starting from scratch. And so, you know, whether we're exactly as successful as we hope to aspirationally be is a question, but we got to start taking steps forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. I know you've had a long meeting and it's lunchtime for you. So I'll fill in any details that you want to know about the contract itself or what our pursuit is. But we thought as the Water Bureau, it was noteworthy to bring this forward and make you aware that we are, you know, trying to meet the call to be thoughtful and creative and think outside of the box when it comes to our community equity goals.
Thank you, Ty. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Maps and Ty, for that very passionate presentation. I absolutely support your goal because clearly 1% of goods and services is embarrassing for a city who says they are committed to equity and ensuring opportunity for all. My question is more around the fact that you're asking for authority for a $20 million contract over 5 years. And that's not something that I give out lightly. Why would I give you authority for that significant amount of money and then wait 5 years to find out if your plan has worked?
So typically for the way that the system for this works is there are important economies of scale to the sourcing of the vast materials that are going along with this for the suppliers who supply them. And whether that's a large firm or a small firm, they have to carry an inventory to make sure they can supply us on the real-time demands of the system. And we're a very big demander of these unique components. There's not a bigger water provider in the state of Oregon. And regionally, until you get to Seattle, there's no one else. And they probably have different providers than we have. So the certainty of being able to depend on a demand for accumulating the supply that these large suppliers have to do is part of the reason you have a longer duration for these contracts. It gives them some certainty so that they can give us the certainty that we need to make sure that we can get these components in real time as we need them. Because when our system demands us to have unique parts, it doesn't give us much warning. Whether it's a 30-inch main break that we had in March of 2018, we don't keep a lot of 30-inch stuff on hand, but our suppliers do, and we can go and get that readily if we have those relationships. So that is a really big and important reason why, the dependability that we rely on as a water system to make sure we can meet all those varying reactionary demands, of which is a bulk of what we do, really helps us create a sustainable maintenance function.
So Ty, how will you ensure that when you put this RFP out for bid, that it actually, if say it doesn't meet the goal, then what? Am I stuck with the same old for 5 years?
Well, I think all of it's a risk. Like this, what I'm talking to you about right now is a risk. I don't think you've seen a lot of other bureaus try to step out and say, hey, we're going to take on this element. And so that's in part what we're doing. And I recognize that what you're saying is absolutely a risk because we haven't done the work in either the water industry or in the city's purview on the goods and services fronts to be able to have a dependable group of minority suppliers who could participate in this, right? So right. We're actually saying our efforts are designed to help cultivate that. And we have to start somewhere. So I think part of it is a risk that we're eyes wide open about that says we may not get to the 20% threshold in this round, but that's where we're going. And we didn't start pursuing that threshold today. Alone in this meeting, I heard multiple contracts from other bureaus where we're in the 49% threshold or realm and the 30+% realm, all of which just a few years ago were out of reach. And that is the byproduct of the progress that goes along with this. So, when I think about the supply side goods and services universe, I actually think the barriers to entry for minority firms are lower than they might be in the construction universe because buying equipment is expensive, getting labor is expensive, having insurance is expensive, and the sort of the demands of and the requirements and the legal barriers to getting into the industry of supplying things is lower. So I hope that we're able to be, uber successful and come back and say, we've done really well, but, some ideas along the way is to have whoever we award the contract to and whatever the legal opportunities that we have to impose those requirements on those folks. I would think a steady reporting requirement that shows us every, 6 months or annually some period of time where we can see what the the participation rate was for that year, because our demands are going to be different from year to year too within this contract. So it's complicated, and I can't guarantee you that we're going to get to 20%, but I can guarantee you that our intentionality here is true, and our endeavor is to start and get going down the path. And I think that is valuable.
So Ty, let me just say your passion is contagious, right? I believe that you are bought in hook, line, and sinker to your vision. And I have no doubt about that. I just need a safeguard, and I don't know what that looks like, but I'm concerned about authorizing $20 million expense and then hoping for the best. I'd be much more, I don't know what the solution is, but I think that there is an amendment that could give me more comfort in us moving this forward. I think 5 years is too long to be tied to a contract that doesn't achieve the goals that we say we want to meet. But maybe that's just me. So that's my only concern. I absolutely believe that that the Water Bureau, under your leadership, is thinking outside of the box, and I applaud that. But I can't think so far out of the box that I just give you $20 million and say, let's see what happens with that process. So I'm certainly looking for an opportunity to really support this, because I do want to see what you do with this opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Maps.
Yes, I appreciate Commissioner Hardesty's concerns here. I also want to point out to my colleagues on council that in terms of goods and services, as has been mentioned several times here today, the city typically contracts out about 1% of our funds to minority companies. Today, we came before you after a lot of thought and a lot of hard work with the challenge to the Bureau to come up with a much higher goal, 20 times higher than the city has done historically. We do not take this lightly. As a commissioner in charge of the Water Bureau and as an African-American, this is something which is very important to me too. Our basic water infrastructure is vital to the health and safety of our city. And I should also point out that in this time of COVID, our supply chains of the Water Bureau and other infrastructure bureaus are incredibly delicate. I believe it's very important that we move forward with this project and meet our equity goals.
And if I may, just one thing to add, Commissioner Hardesty, is you're authorizing us to proceed with the RFP process and go through that whole thing, and you'll have the opportunity to see how that comes out and how we structure that to do the best we can to create that structure within the contract that's going to yield the result. And so I think that's important to consider as part of how we move forward. Here, you're giving us the green light to initiate the process and go through the procurement stuff. And then when we come back, just like we have today on a number of other things, there'll be a version of that we can, convene and say, here's the approach that we've taken to get this. And again, I think it's totally reasonable to say we're breaking new ground here, and there are no guarantees, but our effort is true. And I think we have partners in the community that we already work with in the industry who have some experience with this in other jurisdictions. And I don't doubt their willingness to help us pursue our goals either.
Thank you, Ty. Actually, that was a very good point that today we're just authorizing you to go see what you can put together. Ultimately, in order for you to do the work, you have to come back and we have to authorize you signing on the dotted line. So on that note, I take back what I said, and I'm ready to go.
Okay, this is a first reading. Seems like we've had enough dialogue for this moment, and it was good dialogue at that. Thank you, Ty, for being here and answering questions with integrity and honesty. And we will move this on to a second reading. Next item is item 615. Keelan, can you please read that?
Yes, thank you, President Ryan. Authorize a competitive solicitation and price agreements for site work, erosion control, and planting on behalf of Portland Parks and Recreation for amount not to exceed $8 million.
Okay, this is a second reading. If there's no more deliberation on this item, would anyone like to go ahead and move this?
Actually, just call for the
We don't
vote.
need to, we just need to vote. Okay, Keelan, please call the roll.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Maps,
Aye.
Rubio,
The site work, erosion control, and planting on-call price agreements are critical for achieving Parks' mission to provide care for our parks and natural areas and recreation spaces. And I just want to say that we're committed to following the same procurement methodologies as before that yielded really good outcomes for us. And we're hoping to continue doing that and hopefully exceed our goals. Thanks to all the folks at Parks for their work on this and moving forward. I vote aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Wheeler,
Aye.
Okay, moving forward, item 616. Next item, please.
amend Affordable Housing Preservations and Portland Renter Protections Code to implement the design review procedure certification for affordable housing developments as directed by the Design Overlay Zone Amendments Project and make technical changes to clarify Housing Bureau rulemaking authority.
Thank you, Keelan. Colleagues, in the Design Overlay Zone Amendments Project, Council identified the Portland Housing Bureau as the entity to certify a building of a site's eligibility for the affordable housing criteria for the design review procedure type option. The ordinance before us today establishes the eligibility certification procedure for certain affordable housing projects as outlined in Title 33 amendments within DOZA. The ordinance also makes some technical updates to select sections of Title 30 and to another adopted ordinance that will go into effect on August 1st. Jesse Corner from the Portland Housing Bureau is here to present the specifics. I turn that over to you, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Ryan. For the record, my name is Jessica Connor. I'm the Senior Policy and Planning Coordinator at the Portland Housing Bureau. I've had my own technical challenges in the last couple of days, so I have a few screens going on, so I may not be looking right at you. As Commissioner Ryan noted, the Title 33 Table 825-1 footnote 2 of the adopted Design Overlay Zone Amendments Project identifies the Housing Bureau as the certifying agency for the Affordable Housing Type 2 Design Review option. The amendments proposed to Title 30, as shown in Exhibit A, enable the Housing Bureau to implement processes and procedures to verify eligibility for the design review procedure type option using the criteria established in the adopted code that goes into effect on August 1st, 2021. The proposed city code language in Exhibit A delegating rulemaking authority to the Housing Bureau is derived from updated model language and is based on guidance from the City Attorney's Office. To provide consistency across Housing Bureau programs and clarity to the members of the public, select technical corrections incorporating this updated model language must also be made to Title 30 code as shown in Exhibit B and to an ordinance adopted but not yet effective as reflected in Exhibit C, also going into effect on August 1st, 2021. Before you is a set of amendments, technical corrections. Those the conclusions of my comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jessica. Colleagues, any questions? None. I'm seeing none. Is this emergency ordinance, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. If there's no further deliberation, Keelan, can you please call the roll?
Oh, Commissioner Ryan, we do.
Testimony.
Oh,
Yeah, we do have.
just
Yeah, we have one person signed up. Edith.
getting a little hungry. Yeah. Okay. Public testimony. Is it set up? Is it Edith?
It is Edith. Edith, are you able to unmute? Yeah, I see Edith is on the line, but it doesn't look like she's able to unmute.
She's a pro. She knows how to do it. So
That's true. Edith, *6 on your phone should unmute you.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that she is able to unmute.
Okay, why don't we do what? Oh, no, oh, it's not on mute. Colleagues, is it okay if we just go forward with the vote? Okay. All right, so Keelan, please call the roll.
Hardesty.
Thank you, Edith, for wanting to weigh in. I'm happy to vote aye. And basically what we're doing is just aligning housing policy with the changes that we made when we did you know what I'm talking about, we did the code changes. Happy to vote aye.
Maps.
Aye.
Rubio.
I want to thank the Portland Housing Bureau staff that worked closely with BPS on the DOZA proposal. And thanks for bringing this forward, Commissioner Ryan. I vote aye.
Ryan.
Yes, it's wonderful to see the big changes we make at BPS with the DOZA work and code changes, and now seeing it implemented. Thank you, Housing Bureau. I vote aye.
Wheeler.
Yeah, good work. I vote aye.
Okay, we have one final item. It was on the consent agenda. It was pulled. It's 6:01. Could you please read the item, Keelan?
Approve annexation to the city of Portland of property within the city's urban services boundary in case number A-1-20 on Northwest Miller Road between Northwest Brynwood Lane and Northwest 81st Place.
Mr. Rubio.
Thank you. Colleagues, this item was pulled because item 601 is an annexation request from a property owner in Northwest Portland. And the purpose for this annexation is to provide the property with sewage services, and the property owner has met the requirements. Exhibit A contains the technical description of the boundary of the area being annexed, and that description is typically reviewed by the Oregon Department of Revenue, and they asked for a minor correction. So therefore, I would like to make an amendment to item 601 to substitute the new Exhibit A. And we also have Eric Engstrom from BPS to speak further on the matter if needed right now.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have nothing else to add unless there are other questions.
I'll second the substitute.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions, any deliberation? There's no further discussion. And Keelan, could you please call the roll?
This is the roll on the amendment, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Hardesty.
Aye.
Maps.
Aye.
Rubio.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Wheeler. Aye. I couldn't tell if you called me or not.
Yes, you did good.
Okay, thanks. I made it up. I just sort of assumed. It felt like the right place in the rhythm.
I think we're all going to do that from now on. All right. Now let's go ahead and vote on the motion.
Hardesty.
It's good to
Wait a minute.
see.
Wait a minute. Is there testimony on this, or what is this?
This is the item that we pulled from consent, Commissioner Rubio.
Yeah, but is it an ordinance? I can't see my agenda. If it's an ordinance, you need to call for testimony first.
It is an ordinance.
It is. I will call for testimony. I don't think there is any, but let me go ahead and Keelan, is there any testimony on this item?
No one is on the call for this item.
Okay, thank you for confirming that. Okay. Sorry for not asking out loud. So, Keelan, you would just ask for Commissioner Hardesty, correct?
Yes, Hardesty.
Thank you, Commissioner Rubio and the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability staff for bringing this forward. And I vote aye.
Maps.
Aye.
Rubio.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Before I vote, I want to thank Commissioner Ryan again for stepping in and serving as the facilitator of the council in my absence. Thank you for doing it. It was sort of a meaty agenda, and I thought you did an A+ fantastic job. So thank you for that, Commissioner. I vote aye.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our morning session. Everyone go have a wonderful little break and we'll see you back at 2 o'clock.
I agree with the mayor. Good job, Commissioner.
Thanks, Commissioner.